From the power of the five elements, a figure stepped forth. Only then did everyone clearly see his appearance. He wore a robe woven from the five elemental colors: gold, wood, water, fire, and earth, and the robe itself seemed alive, resonating perfectly with his being. His beard and hair were streaked with white, and his long hair alternated between black and silver. His face was gaunt, carrying the weight of countless stories, and his eyes were deep and shadowed, as if he were still adjusting to this newly reconstituted body. The true five elements Saint Sovereign took a step forward. Beneath his feet stretched a grand path paved by the five elements themselves. Though he was not an infinite Tao existence, he stood among the most formidable of the sage monarchs. Strong was the first thought that struck everyone present, an unfathomable kind of strength. How lively this is! The five elements Saint Sovereign said in mild surprise, surveying the battlefield. Outside the formation, the Sun-Moon Temple's sacred orb was already spinning, ready to strike the great formation. Inside, 10 Saint Sovereigns of varying powers continued their assault against the primogenitor feather. Meanwhile, the section where Su Zimo stood was shrouded in roiling demonic energy, its own separate battlefield. "Greetings, Ancestor." Shangguan Xiongba hurried forward. "Ancestor, I am the current patriarch of the Shangguan Heavenly Clan." The five elements Saint Sovereign nodded slightly. His eyes shifted toward the five lifeless bodies lying on the ground, the reincarnated five elements Saint Sovereigns who had summoned him. "What happened that even you couldn't handle it, forcing me to awaken?" "Ancestor, it's him." Shangguan Xiongba quickly pointed toward Su Zimo, sounding almost like a child lodging a complaint. "He intends to kill members of our Shangguan Heavenly Clan. The five elders had no choice but to summon you." He spoke with fervent excitement. "Ancestor, you have always been the pride of our clan. In the million years since our family's founding, your talent has never been surpassed. When you fell at the Radiant Court, we believed we'd never see you again. I can't believe you've returned." "Enough," the five elements Saint Sovereign said with a small smile. "Don't get too excited. This form won't last long. I only hope I can finish this battle before my time runs out." He slowly turned his gaze toward Su Zimo. "Such powerful demonic energy. I did not expect that even among the current demon race, such a young hero would arise." "Do you wish to fight?" Su Zimo asked evenly. "Why not?" The five elements Saint Sovereign laughed heartily and struck out with a single punch. The blow carried all five elemental forces at once. The sound shook the heavens. Boom! The speed and force were extraordinary, millions of times stronger than the five reincarnated Saint Sovereigns from before. Su Zimo raised his weapon, Shadow Tyrant, to block. The clash shattered the surrounding space, and he was blasted backward, tumbling through the void. "You're strong," said the five elements Saint Sovereign, "but you're still 2 realms below me. Against an ordinary sage monarch, you might never lose, but against me your fate is sealed." His voice carried a hint of nostalgia. "In my prime, I walked the world unrivaled. Among tens of millions, none could match me." Su Zimo grinned, blood on his lips. "That's exactly the kind of opponent worth killing." He raised Shadow Tyrant high. 10 forms of demon, mortal demon, the extinguisher of all things. The blade roared with surging demonic energy, now infused with an additional, chilling force, the power of death. Not mere mortal death, but eternal extinction, the kind that erased existence itself. Su Zimo rose into the air and brought his blade down in one decisive strike. Boom! Before him, the five elements Saint Sovereign manifested a shield of pure elemental energy. "Break!" Su Zimo roared. Blade and shield collided in a thunderous explosion. Veins bulged on his forehead as he poured all his strength into the strike. Slowly, the blade's force began to overpower the elemental barrier. Cracks spread across it with a sharp, splintering sound. "5-element evasion," the saint intoned softly. Just before the shield shattered completely, his form dissolved into a streak of light and vanished, his speed beyond comprehension. As Su Zimo's strike obliterated the shield, A formation appeared beneath his feet. "The five elements grand formation," he murmured. From a distance, the five elements Saint Sovereign raised his hands, channeling the formation. Five immense powers surrounded Suzimo. "What a troublesome opponent," Suzimo muttered. The five energies began to shift shape. Metal became a great saber. Wood became a flying sword. Earth became an unbreakable shield. Fire became a blazing spear. Water became a coiling whip. Each weapon possessed its own will, attacking in unison from all directions. For a moment, even Suzimo struggled to fend them off. He let out a cold snort. Celestial Demon, Heaven's Trial. The celestial demon form invoked overwhelming empowerment, divine force incarnate, an embodiment of heaven's wrath and judgment. His demonic aura erupted, surging higher and higher. As the five weapons rushed him again, Suzimo planted Shadow Tyrant into the void. Power exploded outward from him like a supernova. The resulting blast shattered all five weapons at once. Plague Demon, Bringer of Curses. Suzimo immediately followed up with another technique. A dark wave of deathly power descended from above, enveloping the five elements Saint Sovereign completely. This was a killing force that offered no escape. Within its domain, life itself drained away every instant. "What a formidable technique," the saint said with grudging admiration. "You've truly mastered the art of the forms. Yet, your strength is still lacking." Around him, the five-element energy swirled. Though he could not fully dispel the deathly curse of the plague demon form, he managed to suppress most of it, minimizing its toll on his life force. "I don't have time to play with you," he said finally. His eyes hardened, and his aura gathered to a terrifying degree. "Five elements, ultimate kill." His solemn voice rang out across the battlefield. Around him, five streams of power raged and coalesced. Each took shape as a sacred beast representing one of the five elements. Azure Dragon for wood, Vermilion Bird for fire, Black Tortoise for water, White Tiger for metal, and Qilin for earth. These were not true divine beasts, but incarnations of elemental power given form. Their roars shook heaven and earth. As the five elements Saint Sovereign formed seals with both hands, the beasts arranged themselves in a circular pattern before him, each in its proper position according to its element. And when his seals expanded, touching the five divine beasts, the five-element seal flared with overwhelming power. From the heart of the seal, a torrent of five-colored light burst forth, a flood of energy so fast it was beyond comprehension, faster even than a beam of light. The crowd saw only a flash before the force reached Suzimo's position. The torrent destroyed everything in its path, living up to its name, the ultimate kill, an attack that promised certain death. The moment it appeared, the five elemental beasts coiled around the raging current, charging forward together. Seeing this, Suzimo's expression grew serious. The five elements Saint Sovereign was indeed formidable. The instant the saint began forming the killing seal, Suzimo had already started preparing his response. 10th form, God Demon, the end of heaven and earth. Divine power and demonic energy intertwined around him, two forces of utterly different origins. Divine power was no weaker than demonic energy. Strength itself had no inherent hierarchy. It was the wielder who determined which force reigned supreme. In Suzimo's case, however, the divine power was not meant to coexist. It was nourishment for the demonic. His demonic energy devoured the divine force, fusing into an even greater, apocalyptic might. Divinity was majestic. The infernal lord's power was tyrannical. Together they could overturn the heavens and annihilate creation itself. The two powers rose to the sky, merging into intertwining torrents of divine and demonic force. Upon closer look, one would see that the demonic energy clearly dominated, while the divine power merely sustained it like fuel feeding an inferno. Finally, the five elements' ultimate kill collided head-on with the god-demon form. High above the heavens, two ultimate forces clashed, world-shattering, sky-rending, annihilating all else. Even the revolving sun-moon orb, even the sacred protection of the primogenitor feather, paled in comparison. Yet, the explosion everyone expected never came. Instead, the two opposing powers locked together, frozen in balance. Kill! The five elements Saint Sovereign roared, surging forward to crush Su Zimo. Kill! Su Zimo answered in kind. His divine demonic force reached to the ends of the earth, slaughtering all that stood in its way. The heavens trembled. Destruction itself seemed absolute. Their faces twisted with strain as veins bulged across their foreheads. The spectators below couldn't help but hold their breath. Both men were pushing their power to the absolute limit. For a long moment, the clashing energies remained locked in the void, refusing to explode. Such a delicate equilibrium could only exist because both wielders had complete mastery over their respective forces. It was a perfect balance. Neither side could overcome the other unless one's strength was fully exhausted. Below, Shangguan Xiongba's eyes hardened. In the next instant, his saintly aura surged, and he stepped into the air, charging straight towards Su Zimo. Though he had only recently entered the Saint Realm, his power was not to be dismissed. Sacred energy roared around him as he struck. The onlookers gasped in disbelief. Shangguan Xiongba, the patriarch of the mighty Shangguan heavenly clan, a representative of one of the great clans of the divine Crow God realm, was resorting to a sneak attack? Such an act would stain the family's honor for generations. Despicable! Shameless! Shangguan Xian shouted furiously from the crowd, her face pale with rage. She tried to stop him, but it was already too late. Shangguan Xiongba was only a step away from Su Zimo. He paid no heed to others' opinions. In his mind, only one thought mattered. Su Zimo must die. Once, he had viewed Su Zimo merely as an upstart junior, a troublesome talent. But now, after witnessing Su Zimo's power, his pursuit of Shangguan Wan'er, his defeat of the five elements Saint Sovereigns, and his battle against the true resurrected ancestor himself, fear had taken root in his heart. Yes, fear. He no longer wanted this threat to live. That was the only thing driving him. The five elements Saint Sovereign also noticed what was happening. His expression darkened. Shangguan Xiongba, what are you doing? He barked. Ancestor, I'm helping you, the patriarch replied. I don't need your help, the saint snapped coldly. Stand down. This is my battle. Can you really win against him? Shangguan Xiongba asked, his voice trembling slightly. Whether I win or not, what does it matter? The saint replied. If you're not certain of victory, I can't let such a threat survive, Shangguan Xiongba said grimly. I'll say this once more, the saint thundered. Whatever becomes of the Shangguan heavenly clan in your era, its glory or its fall, is your concern, not mine. But this fight, this is mine. Don't stain my name. His voice rang with unshakable pride. After this battle, you can scheme, conspire, or play the villain all you want. I won't stop you, because I'll no longer be here to do so. Forgive me, ancestor, Shangguan Xiongba said, his tone equally resolute. For the sake of the family's future, I'll sacrifice everything, even honor. Power surged from his body as he struck again, descending upon Su Zimo with overwhelming force. But Su Zimo only smiled faintly, showing no fear. Just as Shangguan Xiongba's palm was about to crush his head, a massive hand caught it midair. A cold, booming voice followed. If you want to fight, I'll fight you instead. Paimon's towering figure had appeared above the battlefield. In truth, the infernal archons had been surrounding the area the entire time, watching from the shadows. Su Zimo had ordered them not to interfere unless he faced an impossible situation. Who are you? Shangguan Xiongba shouted. The one who's going to kill you, Paimon growled, his body erupting with demonic energy. With a single strike, he summoned a storm of darkness, clouds of demonic miasma rolling across the sky. The aura of a sage monarch blazed around him. The two clashed, their battle breaking off from the duel above. At that same moment, the five elements Saint Sovereign felt something shift within him. His expression softened, tinged with melancholy. You've won, he said quietly. The fight's not over yet, Su Zimo replied. My vessel is about to dissipate, the saint said with a faint smile. I'm afraid I won't get the chance. He raised his eyes toward the radiant court high above, a structure that had endured for countless ages. This era, it's a beautiful one, yet I can't help but feel unwilling to have died back then at the hands of that one within the radiant court. It was worthy, I suppose. If heaven would grant me another chance, I would fight again, against you, against him. As his words faded, Su Zimo felt the pressure of the opposing force withdraw. The power of the 5 elements dissolved into the air, and the saint's body slowly faded from sight. A worthy opponent, Su Zimo murmured. If only we had lived in the same age. End of chapter. Chapter 1547, Shangguan Wanner's death. The formation shattered. The body of the 5 elements Saint Sovereign finally dissipated, vanishing along with his boundless attachment to the world. Yet all things in existence must face death. Whether gods, demons, or spirits, none can escape mortality. Su Zimo turned his gaze toward Shangguan Xiongba. The man was truly despicable. He had tried to ambush Su Zimo at his most critical moment. In Paimon's grasp, Shangguan Xiongba was no match at all. Each strike that landed on his abdomen sent him spitting blood as demonic energy rippled outward. As Shangguan Xiongba was pushed to the brink of collapse, Su Zimo did not interfere. Instead, his eyes turned to Shangguan Wanner. She had been healing and recovering under protection earlier, but now, seeing Su Zimo approach step by step, her expression hardened. She knew she couldn't escape this. Hand over the ancestral flame, Su Zimo said calmly. If I give it to you, will you spare me? Shangguan Wanner asked. No. Killing you is my main goal. The ancestral flame is secondary. Su Zimo shook his head. Then I'll fight you to the death. I, Shangguan Wanner, am not one who fears dying, she shouted coldly. Around them, the 9 nether hellfire ignited once more. The blazing flames scorched even the void itself, and an overwhelming force blanketed the world. The massive figure of Medusa appeared again, roaring furiously as both fire and giant charged at Su Zimo. The same trick again, Su Zimo muttered, shaking his head. Then let me show you one of my 10 forms of demon. 7th form, spectral demon, specter of vengeful souls. In that instant, boundless ghostly energy erupted from his body, surging across the heavens. A gigantic ghostly face appeared in the sky, its expression hideous and savage, its mouth wide enough to devour everything. Around it swarmed countless vengeful souls, drawn together by its call. The ghost face shrieked and lunged toward Medusa. With one monstrous bite, it devoured Medusa's head whole. Medusa struggled violently, but how could it break free from such a terrifying demonic art? Die! Su Zimo commanded coldly. A thunderous boom followed as the ghost face bit down and severed Medusa's head completely. The giant was annihilated. Shangguan Wanner's body plummeted from the sky. Su Zimo swung Shadow Tyrant downward. With a resounding crash, the sharp blade intent enveloped her figure, and countless sword strikes descended like a storm, shredding her body and soul alike. Even as her divine soul was being torn apart, Shangguan Wanner still struggled, her voice filled with hatred. I hate it. I shouldn't have died here, she screamed. You should hate yourself for provoking me, Su Zimo said indifferently. Then the power of his blade surged once more, utterly obliterating her soul. Watching this, Shangguan Xiongba's eyes went bloodshot. Wanner, he howled. You should worry about yourself first, Paimon said coolly. He stepped forward and stomped on Shangguan Xiongba's abdomen, kicking him violently into the air. With a thunderous crash, Shangguan Xiongba slammed into the ground, carving a deep crater as dust and rubble flew everywhere. He staggered to his feet, trembling. In that moment, he seemed to have aged decades. His hair had turned completely white. Brother Shangguan. A voice suddenly called out from the Hell Tiger race's side. It was Celestial Tiger Sovereign. How about we join forces? Together, we can challenge the Radiant Court and help you kill that brat, he said. Are you serious? Shangguan Xiongba asked through clenched teeth, his breath ragged, his eyes filled with cold fury. He glared at Su Zimo, his gaze burning with hatred. Shangguan Wan'er was not just his daughter. She had been the pride of the Shangguan heavenly clan. Some even said her future could surpass that of the Five Elements Saint Sovereign. But now everything was gone. Shangguan Xiongba was willing to pay any price to see Su Zimo dead. Of course, Celestial Tiger Sovereign replied with a sly smile. But we have conditions. The Divine Crow God Realm and our Hellfire God Realm must stand united. He wasn't being altruistic. What he truly wanted was the power and influence behind the Shangguan Heavenly Clan and the Divine Crow God Realm. Otherwise, he wouldn't risk offending Su Zimo. To challenge the Radiant Court, they needed the strength of all 5 God Realms. Only then would they have a real chance. If you kill him, the Divine Crow God Realm will fully support you, Shangguan Xiongba said firmly. Patriarch Shangguan, don't be foolish. The Light Lord Sage Monarch from above snorted coldly. If the Radiant Court helps me kill him, we'll fully support you instead. Shangguan Xiongba countered without hesitation. The Light Lord Sage Monarch let out another cold snort. That was impossible. Celestial Tiger Sovereign glanced at Shangguan Xiongba and then slightly opened a gap in the protective barrier of the primogenitor feather. Come in, Patriarch Shangguan, he said. You can take shelter for now. After all, the Sun Moon Temple was still outside, and with only the forces within the formation, they stood no chance against the Radiant Court. Without hesitation, Shangguan Xiongba rushed into the primogenitor feather's barrier. Watching him retreat, the Light Lord Sage Monarch turned to Su Zimo with a faint smile. Lord Su, shall we join forces? I have no objection, Su Zimo replied. But the Radiant Court's way of doing things is too slow. You can't even handle a minor Hellfire God Realm. What's the rush? If we end it too quickly, how will we lure out the Sun Moon Temple? The Light Lord Sage Monarch said with a grin. It was clear that their true goal this time wasn't just the Hellfire God Realm. The Sun Moon Temple was also in their sights. But Su Zimo knew the truth. The real boss wasn't the Sun Moon Temple. Among the 9 heavens, only the Heavenly Court deserved that title, and only it was powerful enough to make so many tremble. As if provoked by the Light Lord Sage Monarch's words, the Sun Moon Temple outside the formation erupted in fury. The Sun Moon Divine Diagram flared to life, colliding with the Huangquan wind-extinguishing formation and shattering it apart with unstoppable force. Though the cries of the Yellow Springs echoed and the winds of destruction howled, under the might of the Divine Diagram, everything crumbled like an illusion. Still, the Sun Moon Temple paid a heavy price. The disciples who had formed hand seals to drive the Divine Diagram all collapsed, their fates unknown. Radiant Court, your end has come, Bright Sun Sovereign roared with laughter. As the Sun Moon Divine Diagram surged forward, the Light Lord Sage Monarch raised his gaze. With a sweep of his hands, the world within the valley began to change. It was as if, in that moment, the entire realm was under his command. Heaven and earth shifted, the stars turned, the skies reversed, and the space once protected by the primogenitor feather began to transform. The body of the 5 elements Saint Sovereign finally dissipated, vanishing along with his boundless attachment to the world. Yet all things in existence must face death. Whether gods, demons, or spirits, none can escape mortality. Su Zimo turned his gaze toward Shangguan Xiongba. The man was truly despicable. He had tried to ambush Su Zimo at his most critical moment. In Paimon's grasp, Shangguan Xiongba was no match at all. Each strike that landed on his abdomen sent him spitting blood as demonic energy rippled outward. As Shangguan Xiongba was pushed to the brink of collapse, Su Zimo did not interfere. Instead, his eyes turned to Shangguan Wan'er. She had been healing and recovering under protection earlier, but now, seeing Su Zimo approach step by step, her expression hardened. She knew she couldn't escape this. Hand over the ancestral flame, Su Zimo said calmly. If I give it to you, will you spare me? Shangguan Wan'er asked. No. Killing you is my main goal. The ancestral flame is secondary. Su Zimo shook his head. Then I'll fight you to the death. I, Shangguan Wan'er, am not one who fears dying. she shouted coldly. Around them, the 9 nether hellfire ignited once more. The blazing flames scorched even the void itself, and an overwhelming force blanketed the world. The massive figure of Medusa appeared again, roaring furiously as both fire and giant charged at Suzumo. The same trick again, Suzumo muttered, shaking his head. Then let me show you one of my 10 forms of demon. 7th form, spectral demon, specter of vengeful souls. In that instant, boundless ghostly energy erupted from his body, surging across the heavens. A gigantic ghostly face appeared in the sky, its expression hideous and savage, its mouth wide enough to devour everything. Around it swarmed countless vengeful souls, drawn together by its call. The ghost face shrieked and lunged toward Medusa. With one monstrous bite, it devoured Medusa's head whole. Medusa struggled violently, but how could it break free from such a terrifying demonic art? Die! Suzumo commanded coldly. A thunderous boom followed as the ghost face bit down and severed Medusa's head completely. The giant was annihilated. Shangguan Wanner's body plummeted from the sky. Suzumo swung Shadow Tyrant downward. With a resounding crash, the sharp blade intent enveloped her figure, and countless sword strikes descended like a storm, shredding her body and soul alike. Even as her divine soul was being torn apart, Shangguan Wanner still struggled, her voice filled with hatred. I hate it. I shouldn't have died here, she screamed. You should hate yourself for provoking me, Suzumo said indifferently. Then the power of his blade surged once more, utterly obliterating her soul. Watching this, Shangguan Xiongba's eyes went bloodshot. Wanner, he howled. You should worry about yourself first, Paimon said coolly. He stepped forward and stomped on Shangguan Xiongba's abdomen, kicking him violently into the air. With a thunderous crash, Shangguan Xiongba slammed into the ground, carving a deep crater as dust and rubble flew everywhere. He staggered to his feet, trembling. In that moment, he seemed to have aged decades. His hair had turned completely white. Brother Shangguan. A voice suddenly called out from the Hell Tiger race's side. It was Celestial Tiger Sovereign. How about we join forces? Together, we can challenge the Radiant Court and help you kill that brat, he said. Are you serious? Shangguan Xiongba asked through clenched teeth, his breath ragged, his eyes filled with cold fury. He glared at Suzumo, his gaze burning with hatred. Shangguan Wanner was not just his daughter. She had been the pride of the Shangguan Heavenly Clan. Some even said her future could surpass that of the 5 Elements Saint Sovereign. But now everything was gone. Shangguan Xiongba was willing to pay any price to see Suzumo dead. Of course, Celestial Tiger Sovereign replied with a sly smile. But we have conditions. The Divine Crow God Realm and our Hellfire God Realm must stand united. He wasn't being altruistic. What he truly wanted was the power and influence behind the Shangguan Heavenly Clan and the Divine Crow God Realm. Otherwise, he wouldn't risk offending Suzumo. To challenge the Radiant Court, they needed the strength of all 5 God Realms. Only then would they have a real chance. If you kill him, the Divine Crow God Realm will fully support you, Shangguan Xiongba said firmly. Patriarch Shangguan, don't be foolish. The Light Lord Sage Monarch from above snorted coldly. If the Radiant Court helps me kill him, we'll fully support you instead. Shangguan Xiongba countered without hesitation. The Light Lord Sage Monarch let out another cold snort. That was impossible. Celestial Tiger Sovereign glanced at Shangguan Xiongba and then slightly opened a gap in the protective barrier of the primogenitor feather. Come in, Patriarch Shangguan, he said. You can take shelter for now. After all, the Sun Moon Temple was still outside, and with only the forces within the formation, they stood no chance against the Radiant Court. Without hesitation, Shangguan Xiongba rushed into the primogenitor feather's barrier. Watching him retreat, the Light Lord Sage Monarch turned to Suzumo with a faint smile. Lord Su, shall we join forces? I have no objection, Suzumo replied. But the Radiant Court's way of doing things is too slow. You can't even handle a minor Hellfire God Realm. What's the rush? If we end it too quickly, How will we lure out the Sun Moon Temple? The Light Lord Sage Monarch said with a grin. It was clear that their true goal this time wasn't just the Hell-Fire God realm. The Sun Moon Temple was also in their sights. But Su Zimo knew the truth. The real boss wasn't the Sun Moon Temple. Among the 9 heavens, only the Heavenly Court deserved that title, and only it was powerful enough to make so many tremble. As if provoked by the Light Lord Sage Monarch's words, the Sun Moon Temple outside the formation erupted in fury. The Sun Moon Divine Diagram flared to life, colliding with the Huangquan wind-extinguishing formation and shattering it apart with unstoppable force. Though the cries of the Yellow Springs echoed and the winds of destruction howled, under the might of the Divine Diagram, everything crumbled like an illusion. Still, the Sun Moon Temple paid a heavy price. The disciples who had formed hand seals to drive the Divine Diagram all collapsed, their fates unknown. Radiant Court, your end has come, Bright Sun Sovereign roared with laughter. As the Sun Moon Divine Diagram surged forward, the Light Lord Sage Monarch raised his gaze. With a sweep of his hands, the world within the valley began to change. It was as if, in that moment, the entire realm was under his command. Heaven and earth shifted, the stars turned, the skies reversed, and the space once protected by the primogenitor feather began to transform. What's going on? Celestial Tiger Sovereign and the others exclaimed in shock. They were horrified to find that the very void they occupied, along with the primogenitor feather, had been completely sealed off. By doing this, the enemy might not be able to harm them directly, but it also meant they were powerless to resist. They've already refined this entire region, Shangguan Xiongba said grimly. If we want to fight properly, we'll have to leave this valley. Within this space, they have absolute control. Damn it! Celestial Tiger Sovereign growled. The Radiant Court, those scheming cowards. They've planned every step. High above, the Light Lord Sage Monarch smiled faintly. I'm rather curious, he said. Which is stronger? The attack power of the Sun Moon God Wheel? Or the defensive might of your primogenitor feather? Hearing this, Celestial Tiger Sovereign's face changed drastically. He seemed to realize something. What are you trying to do? He roared. You'll find out soon enough, the Light Lord Sage Monarch said with a chuckle. The next moment, the immense power of space erupted from him. With a ripple of distortion, the primogenitor feather was suddenly relocated, directly into the path of the incoming Sun Moon God Wheel. The faces of both Bright Sun Sovereign and Celestial Tiger Sovereign turned pale. Stop it! Make it stop! They shouted. The Sun Moon God Wheel has already been activated. Bright Sun Sovereign replied coldly. Before it's fully under control, even I can't stop it. Damn you! You want us all dead, don't you? Celestial Tiger Sovereign roared. Though they trusted the primogenitor feather's defense, the God Wheel was a weapon of unparalleled destructive force. No one wanted to bet their life on an unknown outcome. As Celestial Tiger Sovereign and the others shouted in panic, Bright Sun Sovereign's face darkened. He turned toward the unconscious cultists behind him, those who had powered the Sun Moon God Wheel, and made a ruthless decision. With one great sweep of his arm, a massive palm of spirit energy crashed down from the sky, crushing them all to death. Instantly, the God Wheel halted its rotation, stopping just a few inches away from the primogenitor feather. Stopping it was simple, just kill those controlling it. Cruel as it was, Bright Sun Sovereign knew he needed the support of both the Hellfire God Realm and the Divine Crow God Realm to stand against the Radiant Court. Between sacrificing them or losing his allies, the choice was clear. The Light Lord Sage Monarch clapped his hands lightly, his laughter echoing. Bright Sun, still as ruthless as ever, he said mockingly. You didn't even flinch as you killed your own loyal followers. Truly heartless. Everyone who joins the Sun Moon Temple does so knowing they may die for our cause. Bright Sun Sovereign replied coldly. It's their mission, but their blood debt, I'll collect it from you. You're an odd one, the Light Lord Sage Monarch said with a smile. You killed them yourself. What does that have to do with me? If not for you, would they have died? Bright Sun Sovereign snapped. He lifted his hand and pointed toward the Radiant Court in the heavens. 1 million years ago, we failed to claim what was ours. But today we'll finish it. There is room for only one ruler of the Inferno Crucible Heaven, and it will be the Sun Moon Temple. At his words, many of the younger cultivators looked confused, even Su Zimo himself. But the older generation began to recall ancient history. Actually, one elder said slowly, long ago, when the Radiant Court was first established, it wasn't a single sect. There were two, the Sun Moon Temple and the Radiant Court. The two worked together to rule the entire Inferno Crucible Heaven, leading the Fire God race into prosperity. The crowd was stunned. None of them had known that the Radiant Court once belonged to the Fire God race's rule. Even though the Radiant Court remained powerful today, its authority didn't extend beyond the Radiant Lands. The other 6 God realms no longer followed its command. So why did things become like this? Someone asked. No one knows for sure, another elder sighed. It's said that the two sects clashed over ideology, and the conflict grew into all-out war. Countless forces were dragged into it. In the end, the Sun Moon Temple's deity was defeated, and the Radiant Lands were left under the sole rule of the Sun Sect. Over time, people forgot the Sun Sect's name and simply called it the Radiant Court. Though the Radiant Court won the war, it was badly weakened and could no longer govern the entire Inferno Crucible Heaven. The domain split into 7, becoming today's 7 God realms. So that's the history of our Inferno Crucible Heaven, someone murmured in awe. All ancient history, another said. The Sun Moon Temple vanished long ago. We all thought they were wiped out. Who could have guessed they still survived? Ignoring the chatter, Bright Sun Sovereign raised his hand after breaking the formation. A small, spinning orb appeared in his palm, a sphere divided between sun and moon. As it split apart, everyone realized it was a miniature teleportation formation. Interesting, the Light Lord Sage Monarch said with a grin. Perfect. I'll wipe your entire Sun Moon Temple out in one stroke. We'll see who wipes out whom, Bright Sun Sovereign sneered. At that moment, the formation flared to life. A colossal hand reached through it as waves of spatial energy gathered, the unmistakable power of teleportation. In an instant, several figures clad in robes of yin and yang emerged from the portal. Each one radiated the aura of a saint sovereign. Their presence was so overwhelming that many of the onlookers felt their knees weaken. Never in their lives had they seen so many saint sovereigns gathered in one place. Such a grand confrontation. This was a sight one could die without regret after witnessing. The Heaven Sovereign, the Earth Sovereign, and the Mortal Sovereign of the Sun Moon Temple. The Light Lord Sage Monarch said, eyes narrowing. Old acquaintances, every one of them. But that wasn't all. Another figure stepped forth, a stern-faced elder wearing a robe patterned with stars. His expression was solemn and dignified, but the power emanating from him was extraordinary. Blazing Sovereign, someone murmured. Then came yet another figure, a portly monk in a kasaya, his face round and smiling. Sumeru Buddha, the Light Lord Sage Monarch said, reciting their names one by one. They were all remnants of the Sun Moon Temple, survivors of the ancient war. The old ancestor was too merciful back then, the Light Lord Sage Monarch said coldly. He should never have let you go. All things move according to divine law, Sumeru Buddha replied serenely. The Buddha is merciful, and today, it is time for the Sun Moon Temple to rule once more. Sumeru, the Light Lord Sage Monarch said, his voice laced with contempt. If I remember correctly, during that ancient war, you were nothing but a minor Grand Emperor, a nobody. Seems you've grown up quite a bit. Light Lord Sage Monarch, said Sumeru Buddha with an easy smile. After all these long years, isn't it natural that this humble monk should have grown stronger? My Sun Moon Temple shines eternal, like the sun and moon themselves. Yet your radiant court has declined more and more with each passing era. One rises as the other falls. It is only right that the time has come for us to overthrow you. He spoke with a grin like the laughing Buddha himself, cheerful, unbothered, as though he could laugh his way through anything. Sumeru, your tone is rather arrogant, said a man who stepped forward from among the 10 sage monarchs of the Radiant Court. He was the Nihility Sage Monarch. With a cold snort, he said, "Have you already forgotten how your Sun Moon Temple once fled from us like a pack of beaten dogs? Nihility, that's all ancient history," came another voice from within the swirling vortex. A middle-aged man walked out slowly, a curved blade on his back and an ocean of blade intent surging around him. His gaze was razor-sharp, like two blades ready to cut the heavens themselves. "Sky-gazing Blade Sovereign," Nihility Sage Monarch muttered, narrowing his eyes. In the Great War between the Radiant Court and the Sun Moon Temple long ago, although most of the Sun Moon Temple had been driven to retreat, this Blade Sovereign was one of their fiercest fighters. Even when surrounded by dozens of Saint Sovereigns, he held his ground with ease, and even managed to kill a few of them. "I didn't think you were still alive," Nihility said. "Of course I'm alive," the Blade Sovereign said with a grin. "You didn't die either, did you? As our master said, even if members of the Sun Moon Temple die, we do so on the road to toppling the Radiant Court, not in vain mediocrity." The two sides now faced one another head-on, the tension crackling between them. Neither side yielded an inch. Meanwhile, the onlookers below were pale-faced with disbelief. "Are they trying to tear the heavens apart today?" someone gasped. "So many Saint Sovereigns all at once. The Sun Moon Temple must have brought out their entire force," said another. "They're ready for an all-or-nothing battle. After hiding for 1,000,000 years, they must want to settle this once and for all." "But can the Radiant Court withstand them?" someone else whispered. "Let's just watch," another advised. "A battle on this scale is far beyond our reach." "Light Lord Sage Monarch," Suzimo said with a faint smile. "Aren't you going to call for your old ancestor?" "There's no need," the Light Lord Sage Monarch replied, shaking his head. "I still have over a dozen Saint Sovereigns under my command. It's far too soon to say who'll win or lose. But tell me, young Master Su, you're fighting on our side now. Shouldn't you show some sign of goodwill?" "Show what?" Suzimo said casually. "Your feud with the Sun Moon Temple has nothing to do with me. I only came here to kill Shangguan Xiongba." "This young master," said Bright Sun's sovereign from below with a courteous smile. "Could you give me some face? Let Brother Shangguan go, and name your price. Anything within my power, I'll grant." Suzimo glanced down and said coolly, "You think you can afford my price? How will we know unless you name it?" Bright Sun's sovereign replied. Shangguan Xiongba, standing beside him, looked furious. He had joined the Sun Moon Temple on behalf of the divine Crow God realm, not merely for their protection, but because he wanted them to help him kill Suzimo. But Bright Sun's sovereign had his own plan. "First, we deal with the Radiant Court," he said quietly. "As for the Suzimo, he'll be easy to handle afterward. Once the Radiant Court is gone, you can kill him however you like. It's called taking a step back to move forward." Shangguan Xiongba thought about it and realized it made sense, so he held his tongue. Bright Sun's sovereign then looked up again. "So, young Master Su, what is your condition?" "I want the head of the Lord of Heaven of the Heavenly Court," Suzimo said with a faint smile. "Trade his head for Shangguan Xiongba's life. What do you think?" At those words, Bright Sun Sovereign and Celestial Tiger Sovereign both fell silent. They all knew that this attack on the Radiant Court was not just the work of the Sun Moon Temple and the Hell Tiger race. The Heavenly Court was the one pulling strings behind the scenes. "Surely young Master Su is joking," Bright Sun Sovereign said with a strained smile. Celestial Tiger Sovereign, however, gave a cold laugh. "Looks like some people just don't know what's good for them." "Don't act so arrogant, Celestial Tiger Sovereign," Suzimo shot back. "If you've got the guts, come fight me one-on-one. Otherwise, shut up. You sound like an old gossiping woman." Celestial Tiger Sovereign's face darkened with fury, but when he remembered how Suzimo had brutally beaten the 5 Elements Saint Sovereign earlier, he decided not to provoke him further. "Don't get cocky," he said instead. "Our predecessors from the Hellfire God realm will arrive soon enough." "I'll be waiting," Suzimo replied with a grin. Meanwhile, the Light Lord Sage Monarch turned his gaze toward the other god realms, specifically the Vermilion Bird God Realm and the Chaos Fire God Realm. "Well then," he said, "will you two stand with the Radiant Court against our common enemy?" These two domains were the Radiant Court's strongest potential allies. The smaller forces would likely follow whichever side they chose. Of the 6 great god realms, both the Hellfire God Realm and the Divine Crow God Realm had already joined the Sun Moon Temple. The Radiant Court, of course, was the Radiant Court itself. The only other major domain was the Undying Fire God Realm. But the Light Lord Sage Monarch didn't bother with them, for good reason. Everyone knew that in the ancestral lands, Su Zimo had slaughtered all of the Undying Fire God Realm's disciples. There was no mending that enmity. Upon hearing the Radiant Court's invitation, the Sun Moon Temple quickly countered. "Fellow fire ancestors," Bright Sun Sovereign called out, "you've seen it yourselves. Our Sun Moon Temple has returned at full strength. The Radiant Court's fall is inevitable. Join us, help us overthrow them, and you will all share in the glory as heroes of the new age." "I'll say only one thing," the Light Lord Sage Monarch said coldly. "Under our Radiant Court's rule, each of you remained the sovereign of your own domain. We never interfered. But if the Sun Moon Temple takes over the Inferno Crucible Heaven, do you think things will stay the same? Won't they try to merge all 6 god realms into one?" He sneered. "You and I both know your so-called Heavenly Court wouldn't allow that. Am I wrong?" Bright Sun Sovereign's expression tightened. The Sage Monarch's words struck like an arrow through the heart. It was true. The balance between the 6 god realms had been stable for ages. No sane ruler would risk losing their independence to an outside force, unless, like Shangguan Xiongba, hatred had blinded their judgment. Soon, the fire ancestors of the Vermilion Bird God Realm and the Chaos Fire God Realm exchanged a glance and made their decision. "We will stand with the Radiant Court," they declared. "But Light Lord Sage Monarch, you must guarantee that after the battle, each of us will remain sovereign over our own domains." "Of course," the Sage Monarch said with a warm smile. "The Radiant Court does not seek to dominate the Inferno Crucible Heaven. This realm belongs to all of us, and it should be guarded by all." "I will join the Sun Moon Temple," said another voice. It was the fire ancestor of the Undying Fire God Realm. His eyes burned with hatred. His disciples had all been killed by Su Zimo. He and Shangguan Xiongba were like brothers in misfortune. "Welcome, welcome," Bright Sun Sovereign said with a smile. "Realm Lord Du has made the right choice." When all the factions had finally formed their own lines of battle, Bright Sun Sovereign's confidence grew stronger. He looked up at the suspended Radiant Court and said coldly, "The destruction of the Radiant lands will begin with the fall of this Radiant Court. Everyone, follow my command. Destroy the Radiant Court first." "Yes!" The surrounding Saint Sovereigns roared in unison. On the sides of the Divine Crow God Realm, the Undying Fire God Realm, and the Hellfire God Realm, messengers were already rushing to summon their respective ancestral patriarchs to join the war. Meanwhile, the Chaos Fire God Realm and the Vermilion Flame God Realm were doing the same. This was no ordinary battle. It was a war involving every major power in the Inferno Crucible Heaven. Because of Bright Sun Sovereign's order, countless Saint Sovereigns shot toward the sky, charging straight for the Radiant Court. But the 10 Saint Sovereigns guarding the Radiant Court were not about to stand idle. In an instant, both sides clashed. Explosions rumbled through the heavens. Terrifying power rippled across the battlefield, tearing open the sky above, a wound that refused to heal. This was a battle so fierce that anyone beneath the Saint Sovereign realm didn't even have the right to join. The smaller sects, like the ancient Eternal God Realm under Realm Lord Bai, could only struggle to survive, hiding wherever they could. But fortunately, in the chaos of so many mighty beings fighting, no one had time to notice them. Even figures of Shao Anshan's level had no place in such a war. Su Zimo, meanwhile, ignored the rest. This was the Fire God race's internal conflict. Even if the heavens themselves were overturned, it was still their affair. Just look at the Heavenly Court. Merely pulling a few strings from the shadows had thrown the Fire God race into civil war. Even if the Radiant Court emerged victorious, their losses would be catastrophic. Su Zimo didn't mind ruining the heavenly court scheme, but for now, his targets were clear. Shangguan Xiongba and Du Mingxiu, the realm lord of the undying fire god realm. He looked at Du Mingxiu and sneered. I thought our grudge ended when I slaughtered your undying domain's people. I didn't expect you to be so eager to come seeking death yourself. Du Mingxiu gave a cold snort. A life for a life, a debt must be repaid. That's the law since ancient times. You kill my people and expect to walk away free? Too naive. Then I'll just wipe out your undying fire god realm completely, Su Zimo said indifferently. You call yourselves undying. Let's see if you still claim that when you're nothing but corpses. You're too arrogant. Du Mingxiu's chest rose and fell with anger. Shangguan Xiongba patted his shoulder, saying, Brother Du, don't stoop to this brat's level. He'll die soon enough. Shangguan Xiongba, you can stop talking too, Su Zimo said calmly. Your divine crow god realm won't fare any better than the undying fire god realm. When the ancestors of our two powers arrive, let's see if you still have that sharp tongue, Shangguan Xiongba replied coolly. Then you'd better hope you survive long enough to see them, Su Zimo said. As soon as his words fell, his figure became a streak of light, shooting toward Shangguan Xiongba and Du Mingxiu. The two men were shocked, but before Su Zimo could reach them, a voice stopped him midair. Please wait, good sir. It was Sumeru Buddha. His round belly and fat frame blocked Su Zimo's path as he folded his hands together in a Buddhist salute, smiling gently. There's no need for anger, benefactor. Why not sit and talk with this humble monk instead? Fat monk, don't stand in my way, Su Zimo said, eyes narrowing. The saber in his hand, Shadow Tyrant, trembled violently, eager to strike. The endless aura of blade intent around him grew denser and sharper. Your killing intent is far too heavy, Sumeru Buddha said with a gentle chuckle. Allow this poor monk to help you find peace. As his voice fell, the Kasaya on his shoulders suddenly expanded 1,000-fold, sweeping down from the heavens and enveloping Su Zimo within it. Find peace? With you. Su Zimo's voice echoed from within the robe, cold and disdainful. Even if God or Buddha descended to this world, what difference would it make? I would kill them both if they stood in my way. He raised Shadow Tyrant, and as boundless saber intent crashed down, the Kasaya was sliced cleanly in two, ripped apart down the middle. Yet in an instant it reformed, sealing Su Zimo back inside once more. Sumeru Buddha smiled cheerfully, shrank the Kasaya back to its normal size, and draped it over his shoulder again. Amitabha, he intoned softly. But the next moment, the surface of the Kasaya turned crimson red. Startled, Sumeru quickly threw it away, just in time. The robe burst into roaring flames, burning brighter and brighter until it was reduced to ash. From within those flames emerged Su Zimo, his entire body wrapped in the divine fire of Zhurong. The world around him turned red with its glow. He looked like the fire god incarnate, majestic, untouchable, and unstoppable. How about dying beneath these flames? He said with a faint smile. It would be an honorable death. With a wave of his hand, the fire of Zhurong condensed into a colossal dragon that coiled around him. Then, with a shout of kill, Su Zimo sent it roaring forth. The dragon's cry split the heavens as it plunged down toward Sumeru Buddha. The monk began chanting a sutra and then roared, Vajra Palm! His hands turned to gold, and he thrust them forward. A massive golden Buddha palm manifested across the sky, meeting the fire dragon head-on. But he had underestimated the sheer ferocity of Zhurong's fire. The blazing dragon tore straight through the golden palm and continued its deadly charge toward him. Sumeru Buddha's eyes widened in alarm. He leapt into the air, walking upon the void itself in an attempt to dodge. But the dragon's flames were alive. It hunted him relentlessly, no matter where he fled. The monk sighed softly. So persistent. He drew out a string of golden prayer beads and sat cross-legged in midair. The beads detached from his hands, floating before him to form a radiant golden barrier. When the dragon struck, Its flames crashed violently against the shield, but the barrier held firm, and the fire gradually dimmed. The beads trembled slightly, but nothing more. "Not bad," Suzumo said with a grin. "But if one dragon isn't enough, let's see how you handle 10,000. He raised both arms, and endless flames erupted skyward, flooding the heavens and earth. Within those waves of fire, countless dragons took shape, their roars echoing one after another, lighting up the world. "You've got to be kidding me," Sumeru Buddha gasped as the fiery dragons dove toward him in an unending torrent. At first, his golden barrier withstood the impact. But as the assaults grew more violent, cracks began to spread across its surface. Finally, with a thunderous explosion, the shield shattered completely, and the prayer beads detonated with it. In that instant, Suzumo's figure blurred. He appeared right before the monk and drove his blade clean through his abdomen, pinning him to the sky itself. "Why must it come to this, benefactor?" Sumeru murmured, his smile fading at last. Blood flowed freely from his wound, but his expression remained calm as he whispered softly, "Sumeru, Sumeru, all things are void." As Sumeru Buddha's final words echoed through the air, the space around them seemed to freeze. Everything, time, motion, even sound, was bound and stilled. Suzumo looked up and saw that, at some point, a colossal mountain had appeared in the heavens above. It was Sumeru Mountain. A powerful wave of Sumeru's spiritual force spread across the battlefield. In Buddhist teachings, Sumeru represents the concept of emptiness, the void in which all things are equal and illusory. Infinite lightness can become infinite heaviness. All things may be empty, yet all things may also be full. Thus, Sumeru Mountain could be weightless as a feather, or as heavy as the universe itself. When the mountain descended to suppress him, Suzumo felt an overwhelming pressure. No matter how he tried, he could not evade it. It was like the Monkey King trapped beneath 5 fingers of Shakyamuni, struggling in vain. With a thunderous boom, Sumeru Buddha appeared atop the mountain, 1 foot planted on its peak. The sound of shifting stone roared through the sky. Suzumo was crushed beneath Sumeru Mountain. "No matter how strong you think you are, before my Sumeru Mountain you will bow your head and submit," the Sumeru Buddha said, bursting into laughter. But his laughter didn't last long. He suddenly felt the mountain tremble. A sinister demonic aura began to seep out from beneath Sumeru Mountain. The entire mountain started to shake violently. The monk's expression changed drastically. Holy light flared around him as he shouted, "Suppress it!" For a brief moment, his Buddhist light forced the mountain to steady. But then, the resistance from below grew even more ferocious. A single explosion resounded. Boom! Sumeru Mountain was overturned and flung aside, crashing into the earth with a deafening rumble. Suzumo's divine body radiated with the might of the God-Devil creation Atlas, Heaven-Earth Dharma Codex, and heaven-shattering God Scripture, 3 supreme arts combined. He stood like a giant who could shake the heavens, utterly unstoppable. How could a mere mountain hope to suppress such power? Suzumo threw a single punch. The Sumeru Buddha tried to defend himself, but the strike shattered everything in its path, blasting him into the distance. "Quick! Help me! I can't hold him!" Sumeru Buddha cried, panic replacing his smile. If no one came soon, he knew he wouldn't last. "Sumeru!" A booming laugh came from afar. "Weren't you the one always boasting that none in your realm could rival you? Why are you losing the first fight? If you've got the guts, come try this monster yourself." Sumeru snapped back bitterly. "He's freakishly strong." Suzumo turned his gaze toward the new arrival. A figure descended through the void, half man, half serpent. The Black Serpent Saint Sovereign. His true form was that of a black serpent who, after reaching sainthood, had chosen not to transform into a dragon. Instead, he had slain dragons as a serpent. His upper body was human, but his lower half remained a long, coiled serpent tail. He slithered through the air to stand beside Sumeru Buddha. Suzumo raised his saber shadow tyrant, its blade aura surging like a storm. He pointed the weapon at them and said with a grin, "It's been a while since I've tasted snake meat. Perfect chance to try some today. Let's see if those teeth of yours can chew through me," the black serpent said coldly. "Arrogant brat, you'll soon learn your place." "Stop talking nonsense," Suzumo waved. "You two can come at me together," the black serpent hissed sharply. He lifted his head, and from his mouth spewed a torrent of death and decay, an endless stream of corrosive venom so potent it ate away at the very air and space around it. Suzumo watched calmly and said, "Child's play." Shadow Tyrant materialized fully before him, cutting through the void. Though the venom's corrosive power was immense, it couldn't harm the saber. Instead, the saber's killing intent surged forward along the poisonous current. Another explosion echoed. The black serpent Saint Sovereign was sent flying backward. "Interesting," the serpent growled, regaining his balance. He turned to Sumeru and snapped, "Are you just going to stand there watching?" "I'll keep him suppressed with Sumeru Mountain as best I can, Brother Black Serpent," Sumeru said hurriedly. "The rest is up to you," the serpent snorted. He knew the monk's strength was inferior to his own, but now was not the time for complaint. He let out a thunderous roar. His body expanded rapidly as he revealed his true form, an enormous black serpent that blotted out the sky. This serpent had two heads, each spraying a mist of virulent green poison from its fangs. Its massive, coiling body stretched for thousands of meters. Black scales overlapped like dark armor, gleaming ominously. For those with fear of dense patterns, the sight would have been unbearable. The gigantic serpent roared, its tremendous bulk surging down towards Suzumo. Beside it, Sumeru Buddha joined in again. Sumeru Mountain suppress. A colossal mountain and a monstrous serpent tail came crashing in from opposite directions. But Suzumo did not retreat. With divine techniques amplifying his power, he was like a titan standing tall against heaven itself. He caught the serpent's sweeping tail with one hand and lifted the descending mountain with the other. With a single hand, he held off two Saint Sovereigns at once. Suzumo bellowed, muscles surging, and flung Sumeru Mountain aside. Then, gripping the serpent's tail, he spun it around several times before hurling it high into the sky. The serpent's enormous body followed helplessly, thrown across the battlefield before crashing into the ground. The black serpent rose again, roaring furiously. His enormous frame shuddered as he lunged back toward Suzumo, jaws gaping wide. The space around them distorted under the weight of his killing intent as his twin heads bit straight for Suzumo's skull. Suzumo lifted Shadow Tyrant to block. The serpent's fangs clamped down on the blade, venom spilling and sizzling across the air like acid rain. Hissing in fury, the black serpent pressed harder. Suzumo's eyes flashed. Behind him, the three-life gate opened, flooding him with an even greater power. He swept the saber downward, smashing the serpent's heads aside and flinging its massive body away. Roaring with battle lust, Suzumo leapt high into the air and landed squarely on the serpent's back. He sat astride its writhing form. The black serpent thrashed violently and raged at being ridden like a beast of burden. "D!" Suzumo shouted. Shadow Tyrant plunged deep into one of the serpent's heads. The sky shook with the impact. Thick, black blood gushed out, stinking of decay and poison. Suzumo drove his fists down again and again. Bang! 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 Dozens of strikes later, the serpent's massive body was nothing but a mangled heap of flesh, drenched in its own black blood. "Brother Black Serpent, I'm coming," Sumeru Buddha roared. He poured all his spirit power into Sumeru Mountain until it fused completely with his divine soul. The heavens trembled as the mountain once more descended to suppress Suzumo. But it was useless. With a single punch, Suzumo overturned the mountain again. For the first time, Sumeru Mountain, once the ultimate symbol of suppression, failed to subdue even one man. Sumeru Buddha was at a loss. The black serpent's body had been completely destroyed, reduced to pulp. His divine soul burst out from the shattered remains, fleeing desperately into the distance. But how could Su Zimo possibly give him such a chance? His overwhelming power surged endlessly around him. Su Zimo reached out with one hand and seized the Black Serpent Saint Sovereign's divine soul in his grasp. Power coiled through the air like a storm, but no amount of struggling could change the outcome. "Release me!" the Black Serpent roared furiously. "You still dare talk back?" Su Zimo snapped coldly, and his fists came crashing down. Blow after blow struck the serpent's soul until its vision swam. His spirit form trembled and dimmed. Unless one cultivated a special method, a divine soul separated from the flesh was far weaker than before. This was common knowledge. A soul could not linger outside its body for too long. Otherwise, even the spirit itself would perish. "What are you going to do?" the Black Serpent asked, panic creeping into his voice. "What do you think?" Su Zimo said, gripping the serpent's soul in one hand while raising his saber, Shadow Tyrant, with the other. "No, don't. Spare me. I'll withdraw from this battle," the Black Serpent pleaded, thrashing desperately. "Sumeru, help me." Seeing this scene, Sumeru Buddha no longer dared to fight. He turned and fled, retreating toward the other Saint Sovereigns of the Sun Moon Temple. Only by staying near them could he feel any semblance of safety. As for the Black Serpent, better him than me. Shadow Tyrant fell, its endless blade aura tearing through the void. With a thunderous crash, space itself split open, forming a deep, swirling vortex. The Black Serpent Saint Sovereign's soul was obliterated in a single stroke. But Su Zimo knew that killing a Saint Sovereign was never so simple. As long as their life-death soul still existed, they could be resurrected. He took out the traceless compass. It spun rapidly in midair, searching. Moments later, it revealed the hidden location of the serpent's life and death soul. Su Zimo summoned 2 blazing flames of Zhurong fire, thrusting them into the void. The twin fires followed the trail revealed by the compass, burning along the ether. No matter how well hidden the serpent's soul was, it would soon be consumed by the flames. With the Black Serpent Saint Sovereign slain and Sumeru Buddha driven off, Su Zimo finally turned his gaze toward Shangguan Xiongba and Du Mingxiu. "You two can come at me together," he said calmly. "To die by my hand is at least a dignified end." At his words, both men's expressions twisted in fury. Shangguan Xiongba glared at Celestial Tiger Sovereign and shouted, "Is this how you protect us?" He had never imagined that the Sun Moon Temple's Saint Sovereigns would be so useless, unable to even restrain Su Zimo. But then he remembered the 5 elements Saint Sovereign of the Shangguan Heavenly Clan, and his anger eased. He was not afraid of death, but the thought of dying before avenging his clan was intolerable. "Celestial Tiger Sovereign," he said coldly, "my divine Crow God realm has joined this war. If I die here, the Fire Domain will withdraw its support from you." Celestial Tiger Sovereign frowned helplessly. Finally, he turned to Bright Sun Sovereign and said, "Brother Bright Sun, assign a few more Saint Sovereigns to protect Brother Shangguan. It seems our brother has lost his nerve." "You seem quite brave yourself," Su Zimo said, his eyes fixing on Celestial Tiger Sovereign. Celestial Tiger Sovereign stiffened instantly. He forced a laugh and said, "Young Master Su, we're only here to protect Brother Shangguan. We mean no offense." "That doesn't matter," Su Zimo said flatly. "Since you're on their side, I see no reason to spare you." He charged forward, saber in hand. "Help me, quickly." Celestial Tiger Sovereign's panicked shout was even louder than Shangguan's. Just as Su Zimo's saber was about to fall, a pair of hands infused with yin and yang energy appeared, intercepting the strike. Su Zimo looked up. A young man stood before him. His long hair flowed over his shoulders, half of it black, half white. He wore the robes of a scholar, and the aura around him shimmered with the balance of yin and yang. He appeared about the same age as Su Zimo, though one could never judge the age of cultivators by their faces. Some chose to let time mark them naturally. Others kept their youthful appearances forever. "Yin-Yang Sage Monarch," the Light Lord Sage Monarch said grimly from above. Within the Sun Moon Temple, There had been many saint sovereigns, but only a few whose power inspired true fear. And among them, none could be ranked without mentioning this one, the Inyang Sage Monarch. When the Sun Moon Temple and the Sun Sect once jointly ruled the Inferno Crucible Heaven, this man had been one of their greatest figures. Now, the Inyang Sage Monarch raised his hand, releasing a wave of power that blasted Su Zimo backward. Light, the Inyang Sage Monarch said with a faint smile. It's been a long time. It has indeed, replied the Light Lord Sage Monarch, his expression complicated before he finally smiled. But you shouldn't have come. The Sun Moon Temple's defeat is inevitable. Coming here only ensures your death. Long ago, few knew that these two had once been the closest of friends. They admired each other deeply, journeyed and trained together, and once shared the bond of true brothers. But their sects-opposing faiths had ultimately forced them onto opposite sides. Old friends had become enemies. To tell you the truth, said the Inyang Sage Monarch, shaking his head, I didn't want to come. After that great war, I devoted everything to reaching the infinite Tao realm. The affairs of the Sun Moon Temple were long handed down to the younger generation. He smiled faintly. But now, with the sect striving to rise again, I must do my part as an elder. Whatever happens, I'll lend my strength. After 1,000,000 years of cultivation, and still no infinite Tao, the Light Lord Sage Monarch sighed. In truth, he was no better off himself. It's far too difficult, Inyang Sage Monarch said with a soft laugh. I've lost all hope of it in this lifetime. Old friend, he added, his tone hardening. Enough reminiscing. Today, we stand as opponents. It was clear that among the saint sovereigns who had come with the Sun Moon Temple, Inyang was their leader, the strongest and most senior of them all. How shall we fight then? Asked the Light Lord Sage Monarch. Do you mean to tear apart my radiant lands? Or punch a hole through the Inferno Crucible Heaven itself? A battle among so many saint sovereigns could shatter the entire realm. The Inyang Sage Monarch tilted his head slightly, smiling. Why should we fight ourselves? This time we act under the command of our ancestor. Ancestor! Light Lord Sage Monarch's heart skipped a beat, his face darkening. Which ancestor are you talking about? Light, have you forgotten? Inyang replied softly. The Sun Moon Temple has only one true ancestor, the Sun Moon God himself. That's impossible, Light Lord Sage Monarch said, disbelief in his voice. Didn't your Sun Moon God die long ago, slain by our own ancestor? Don't be foolish, Inyang said, his eyes glinting coldly. Did you really think the Sun Moon God could die so easily? The Light Lord Sage Monarch did not want to believe it. Perhaps he truly didn't believe it, or perhaps he was simply avoiding the truth. Because deep down, he knew very well that in the great war of ages past, the one pulling the strings behind the scenes had been none other than the Sun Moon God himself. He understood all too well the power of that being. Aside from their own ancestor, no one in existence could rival the Sun Moon God. Still, he also knew that in a matter like this, the Inyang Sage Monarch would have no reason to lie. The Light Lord Sage Monarch looked toward him and said grimly, After all these years, the Sun Moon God still refuses to let go. You're mistaken, Inyang replied. This time it wasn't the ancestor who planned it. He's merely carrying out another's will. The Light Lord Sage Monarch frowned in confusion. Given the Sun Moon God's status, who could possibly stand above him and make him the executor of someone else's plan? Summon the ancestor, Inyang said as he turned toward Bright Sun Sovereign. Can't you handle them yourself? Bright Sun Sovereign asked reluctantly. He clearly did not wish to summon the ancestor so easily, still hoping the Inyang Sage Monarch might win without it. I can contact the people from the Heavenly Court, Bright Sun Sovereign added. We'll have them send reinforcements. The Inyang Sage Monarch chuckled softly. Do you really think the Heavenly Court would expose itself so easily? Or do you believe they're truly ready for open war with the Radiant Court? Isn't that the plan? Bright Sun Sovereign asked, puzzled. Everyone already knows the Heavenly Court stands behind us. Knowing is one thing, Yin Yang said, shaking his head. But going to war is another matter entirely. You're still too young. If you want the heavenly court to act, they must first see something, see that we have the strength to topple the radiant court. Only then will they risk everything to intervene. For the heavenly court, unless they were absolutely certain of victory, they would never initiate a war themselves. It was far easier for them to manipulate events from the shadows, reaping the rewards while risking nothing. After hearing this, Bright Sun Sovereign realized how naive his thinking had been. He took out a key, carved from green jade, its surface lined with strange, curving runes. The moment he brought it forth, a faint glow radiated from the jade. "Stop him!" the Light Lord Sage Monarch shouted. "Don't let him summon the Sun Moon God." Whether or not the deity still lived, he couldn't take that risk. He roared and charged straight at Bright Sun Sovereign. But the Yin Yang Sage Monarch appeared before him in an instant, blocking his path. "Light," he said with a grin. "If it's a fight you want, I'll accompany you. It's been 1,000,000 years since I've stretched my limbs. I might as well enjoy it." "Yin Yang," the Light Lord Sage Monarch said bitterly, "are you truly willing to act as the heavenly court's lapdog? You're not the man you once were." "I already told you," Yin Yang replied with a shake of his head. "I'm only the executor. Whatever decisions the young ones make, it's no longer my concern." "Fine then," Light Lord said coldly. "Don't blame me for showing no mercy." He raised his arms, summoning a blazing golden sun that burst forth above him. The sun burned with terrifying radiance as he hurled it straight at Yin Yang. But Yin Yang was no ordinary opponent. A spinning disc appeared in his hands, half light, half dark. The Yin Yang disc met the blazing sun head-on. With a thunderous boom, the explosion sent both saints hurtling backward. Light Lord steadied himself, his eyes burning with anger. He roared again, and 2 miniature suns flared into existence around his fists. Their searing flames could incinerate anything. The surrounding void twisted and cracked, releasing chaotic energy streams. Standing tall between heaven and earth, the Light Lord Sage Monarch extended his arms, his fists stretching out nearly 100 meters, and struck. One fist flew toward Yin Yang to pin him down, while the other shot toward Bright Sun Sovereign. At that moment, Bright Sun Sovereign had already begun the summoning ritual. He sat cross-legged in midair, his body spinning slowly in a full rotation. His face remained solemn and unmoving, his expression filled with divine focus. On his forehead, a sun and a moon blazed side by side, each occupying half his face. When the twin fists came crashing down, the Yin Yang Sage Monarch's eyes flashed. He darted backward, and the Yin Yang disc split into 2 halves. The Yang half shielded his chest, while the Yin half flew out to envelop Bright Sun Sovereign, protecting him within its glow. 2 violent explosions echoed through the sky. Mushroom clouds of energy burst across the void, forcing the surrounding cultivators to retreat, leaving the battlefield entirely to the 2 Saint Sovereigns. The Light Lord Sage Monarch steadied himself and looked toward Bright Sun Sovereign, only to see him completely unharmed, surrounded by a circle of Saint Sovereigns protecting him. "Damn it!" Light Lord cursed. Everything had been within his calculations. None of these enemies should have been able to threaten him. Even the Yin Yang Sage Monarch alone wouldn't have been enough. But he had failed to account for the Sun Moon God. And who could blame him? After all, that deity had been personally slain by the Radiant Court's own ancestor. He had been there, he had witnessed it with his own eyes. Yet now that very same dead god was about to return. No matter what means the Sun Moon Temple had used, the Light Lord Sage Monarch would not allow the Sun Moon God to set foot on Solar Domain soil again. "You can't stop it," Yin Yang said, his voice calm but cold. "The ancestor's return cannot be prevented." The Light Lord Sage Monarch turned, hoping for Su Zimo's help. But he quickly saw that Su Zimo had no interest in this conflict. He was walking slowly, 1 step at a time, toward Shangguan Xiongba and Du Mingxiu. The Sage Monarch sighed helplessly. They had no right or power to command Su Zimo. All he could do was watch, anxious and powerless. "Keep running, you two," Su Zimo said with a faint smile. "Help us," Du Mingxiu screamed. But the saint sovereigns of the Sun Moon Temple were too busy guarding Bright Sun Sovereign, ensuring the success of the summoning. Nothing, absolutely nothing, could be allowed to go wrong. Their safety was secondary to that of the ritual. "Bright Sun Sovereign, you lied to me," Shangguan Shongba roared. He turned to Du Mingxiu and said coldly, "If we're going to die, then let's at least fight back. Let's take a piece of him with us. Why cower like this?" "How can you say that?" Du Mingxiu shouted in panic. "You were doomed already. You joined the Sun Moon Temple because you had no choice, for revenge. But I had nothing to do with this. I joined them willingly." Now he regretted everything. Su Zimo had never intended to kill him in the first place. It was his own choice that had sealed his fate. Shangguan Xiongba snorted coldly and slapped him aside, clearly disgusted by his cowardice. He looked at Su Zimo without a hint of fear. Drawing upon his spirit energy, he condensed a blade into his hand and charged straight at Su Zimo. His fighting style was ferocious, utterly reckless. Every strike exchanged life for life. But if it came down to ruthlessness, how could Su Zimo possibly be afraid of him? Su Zimo caught the incoming blade with one hand and kicked Shangguan Xiongba hard in the chest. Then he followed with a punch that smashed into the man's face. Shangguan Xiongba's body was hurled backward through the air. "If you kill me, the entire Shangguan Heavenly Clan will never forgive you," he roared as he staggered back to his feet and attacked again. Su Zimo grabbed him by the collar and struck him several times in quick succession until stars danced before his eyes. "The only thing I regret," Shangguan Xiongba growled coldly, "is that I didn't kill you first. I'll be waiting for you in the underworld." Then he forced open all of his meridian gates. He was going to self-destruct. The self-detonation of a saint sovereign was no trivial matter. Its power was devastating. But Su Zimo didn't even flinch. The three life gates revolved around him, cloaking him in a moment of absolute invulnerability. When the explosion erupted in a thunderous wave, the black mushroom cloud rippled violently outward, but Su Zimo emerged completely unharmed. The most powerful blast came only in that first instant. The lingering force was insignificant. From the rolling black mist, Su Zimo stepped out calmly and seized Du Mingxiu in one hand. "Spare me!" Du Mingxiu screamed, struggling desperately. But Su Zimo snapped his neck with a twist and shattered him with a burst of sword energy. He yawned lightly, clearly unimpressed. "That's a bit brutal, don't you think?" the Yin-Yang Sage Monarch remarked. "Brutal? Please," Su Zimo waved dismissively. "Don't act like some saintly savior. Every true saint has waded through seas of corpses to reach this realm. To become a saint," he added, "one must be the butcher of 10,000. "They were still the rulers of the God realm," Yin-Yang replied. "Their deaths were pitifully meaningless." "Dying by my hand is an honor," Su Zimo said casually. Beside them, the Light Lord Sage Monarch shouted urgently, "Young Master Su, lend me your strength. Help me stop the Sun Moon Temple scheme." "And why should I help you?" Su Zimo asked with a faint smile. "If you don't, once the Sun Moon God emerges, he'll kill us all," Light Lord said anxiously. "He can't kill me," Su Zimo replied with a shake of his head. "Even if your own ancestor came down himself, he still couldn't kill me." The Light Lord Sage Monarch didn't understand where Su Zimo's confidence came from, but he knew this much: Su Zimo could not be swayed by threats or pleas, only by absolute profit. "What do you want, then?" he asked. "What I want," Su Zimo said, "is something you can't give. Besides, why fear the Sun Moon God? Isn't your own ancestor, Primordial Flame, still here?" The Light Lord Sage Monarch said nothing more. He turned his gaze toward Bright Sun Sovereign, who was now deep in the summoning trance. His entire body was being engulfed by a mysterious force that seemed to consume him whole. Light Lord rushed forward again, but the Yin-Yang Sage Monarch blocked his path once more. "Light Lord," he said calmly, "you can't stop it. Look, our ancestor is about to return." As his words fell, the air around Bright Sun's sovereign flared violently. A blinding beam of sunlight and moonlight burst upward at once. Under that divine radiance, a sun and a moon appeared together in the heavens, an impossible sight. The waves of power spread farther and farther, growing stronger with every heartbeat. The Light Lord Sage Monarch stepped back several paces. He could tell the situation was beyond recovery. "Don't panic," he ordered the other Saint Sovereigns beside him. "We'll watch and see what happens." Bright Sun Sovereign's body was now completely consumed by the light. His existence had become nothing more than a vessel, a conduit to summon the Sun-Moon God. This was why, at first, Bright Sun Sovereign had hesitated to perform the ritual. He had known it would cost him his life. A bestial roar suddenly tore through the sky. The Light Lord Sage Monarch froze, recognizing that sound. He knew he would never forget it. The ground trembled violently. The heavens themselves began to crack and collapse. Furious storms and torrential rain swept across the skies. Above, a vast black vortex opened in the firmament, lightning raging within it. When the Enyang Sage Monarch saw it, he and every member of the Sun-Moon Temple fell to their knees and shouted in unison. "We humbly welcome the ancestors' arrival." At their cry, a colossal foot stepped out from the vortex. When it came down upon the sky, countless strange runes glowed upon its surface, symbols of a forbidden law. That foot seemed to tread upon the stars themselves, commanding wind and rain, ruling all creation. Then the enormous figure began to emerge further. Its arm alone pulsed with the power of countless primordial edicts, the supreme forces of heaven and earth, attainable only at the infinite Tao realm. Even Saint Sovereigns and Sage Monarchs could only touch upon primal Taos. Primordial edicts were absolute. When the power of primordial edicts appeared, all primal Taos bowed and all nomological truths withdrew. Finally, the giant's full form stood revealed. He was like a transcendent Buddha, his countenance one of boundless compassion and mercy. Yet his face never stayed the same. It shifted endlessly, changing every second into countless forms. The Buddha has no fixed visage. Form arises from the heart. Whatever one's heart perceived, that was the face one saw. Behind the giant's head, a massive wheel turned slowly. Within the wheel, the inner circle was the moon, the outer, the sun. His identity needed no further declaration. The Light Lord Sage Monarch stared in shock and disbelief. "The Sun-Moon God, he's truly returned." "Light Lord, summon our ancestor," someone cried. "No!" Light Lord shouted, shaking his head. "Our ancestor decreed that unless he personally descends, none are to disturb him." "But the Sun-Moon God has already appeared," another shouted. "What is our ancestor waiting for? How can we stop him with just our power? That's suicide." Only those who had survived the ancient war truly understood the terror of the Sun-Moon God. Yet the Light Lord Sage Monarch remained firm. "This is our ancestors' command," he said solemnly. "Even if it means our deaths, we must slay the Sun-Moon God." The merciful God opened his eyes. In that instant, when he opened them, heaven and earth turned to day. When he closed them, the world sank into night. The entire realm moved in rhythm with him. He ruled the surrounding void. Here, he was God, he was the one and only sovereign. The Sun-Moon God turned his gaze toward Su Zimo. There was a deep, inexplicable meaning in that glance. Then he looked away, toward the direction of the Radiant Court, and sighed softly. Raising one hand, he pressed it down toward the palace. A deafening boom split the world apart. The heavens themselves shattered, as though divided in two. Several Saint Sovereigns from the Radiant Court rushed forward to stop him, but with a single casual slap, they were sent flying like insects. That one palm strike reduced the entire Radiant Court to rubble. A single strike, just one, and it carried power enough to destroy heaven and earth. The Radiant Court had once been famed for its impenetrable defenses. Even a Saint Sovereign could not scratch it. Yet now, with one blow, the giant not only repelled all the Saint Sovereigns but reduced the Radiant Court to rubble. The Light Lord Sage Monarch's face darkened. This opening strike was a blatant show of dominance. The god's strength was just as suffocating as it had been 1,000,000 years ago. Across from him, the morale of the Sun Moon Temple soared. "Ancestor!" Countless voices shouted in excitement. The Sun Moon God raised his head again. With a sweep of his massive hand, he reached toward the Light Lord Sage Monarch. "Eternal Sun!" the Light Lord roared. The flames of the sun ignited around him, blazing fiercely, erupting like a living inferno. His body transformed, becoming the sun itself. A scorching sun materialized in the void, merging with the heavens, its heat melting everything around it. As the giant hand drew near, even it began to show signs of melting. But the Light Lord had no time to take pride in this, because the Sun Moon God abruptly clenched his still distant hand. Though tens of meters separated them, the Light Lord found himself trapped. The space around him compressed violently, squeezing inward with suffocating force. He couldn't move. He felt an overwhelming power crushing every inch of the surrounding space, its density growing unbearable. "Save the Sage Monarch!" the Saint Sovereigns behind him shouted. The Sage Monarch could not die, not like this. His death would shatter morale entirely. All the Saint Sovereigns unleashed their strongest abilities. Dozens of true fates manifested in the sky. A sword descended from the west, splitting heaven and earth. A pillar soared upward, connecting sky and underworld. Earthfire rose like a burning sun, autumn winds howling with desolate force. A serene lotus appeared, white as jade, pure as the Tao. As the divine souls emerged, countless celestial phenomena unfolded in the heavens. The spectacle was awe-inspiring. Thunder rolled endlessly through the void. The skies had not stopped shaking for even a moment. When the multicolored attacks exploded like a flood in the heavens, the space around the Light Lord that had been crushed by the Sun Moon God instantly shattered. The spatial prison dissolved, and the Light Lord inhaled air like a drowning man breaking the surface. He tore free of the collapsing space and phased away in a desperate retreat. Only when he was safe did he gasp for breath. Yet despite his escape, everyone remained grim, because after enduring the combined attacks of so many Saint Sovereigns, the Sun Moon God stood completely unharmed, looking down on them all. What no one expected was this. He shifted his gaze away from the radiant court crowd and onto Su Zimo. He swept his hand forward, reaching directly for Su Zimo. This attack made no sense. The Sun Moon Temple's enemy was clearly the Radiant Court. Su Zimo, at best, was only an outsider. "So this is Heavenly Court's intention, huh?" Su Zimo sneered. He was strong, certainly, but he knew the Sun Moon Temple, at this level, had already exceeded what he could casually deal with. When the giant hand descended, the surrounding space hardened like stone, just as before. Even the spirit energy in his body struggled to circulate. Neither the 10 primordial god scriptures nor any other techniques could be activated. He knew this was the suppression of primordial edicts. Before absolute power, only absolute power could resist. Anything else, techniques, spells, divine abilities, was meaningless. As the giant hand approached, something flickered behind Su Zimo. No one saw clearly what it was. But in the next instant, he broke free from the spatial confinement and escaped from beneath the descending hand. Everyone was stunned. This was primordial edict power. Even the Light Lord Sage Monarch had been trapped, and it had taken the combined strength of more than a dozen Saint Sovereigns to free him. Su Zimo wasn't even a Sage Monarch, yet he escaped alone. Panting heavily, he stared at the massive hand in front of him. The escape had drained him terribly. He had just invoked the God World. The opponent possessed primordial edicts, but Su Zimo's God World was itself a complete world. Anything could be found within it, including primordial edicts. But Su Zimo could barely wield such power in his current state. The tiny thread of primordial edicts he'd used to break the god's confinement had left him nearly empty. The Sun Moon God paused for a moment, surprised. But only for a moment. Then he reached for Su Zimo again. Su Zimo retreated rapidly. Just then, The Light Lord Sage Monarch called out to him. Young Master Su, lend me your strength. Together, we can destroy this Sun-Moon God. Arrogant. Inyang Sage Monarch snorted before Su Zimo could reply. Hearing someone talk about killing their ancestor made their blood boil. How do we work together? Su Zimo asked the Light Lord, ignoring the Inyang Sage Monarch entirely. If not for the presence of the Sun-Moon God, he wouldn't mind fighting Inyang then and there. Our ancestor left behind a formation, Light Lord said. One designed specifically to counter the Sun-Moon God. A formation? Su Zimo frowned. What kind of formation could kill an infinite Tao-level existence? He had never heard of such a thing. Hasn't young Master Su noticed something unusual about this Sun-Moon God? Light Lord asked suddenly. Su Zimo paused. Studying the god carefully, he indeed noticed strange details. Though the god radiated the aura of primordial edicts, each time he used a bit of primordial edicts it lessened. His movements were stiff, lifeless, more like a soulless corpse than a true infinite Tao powerhouse. Though his body brimmed with vitality, faint traces of death lingered within it. So you've realized it? Inyang Sage Monarch said quietly, narrowing his eyes. Yes, our ancestor, the Sun-Moon God, did indeed die back then. But we refined his corpse, and this is the result. He admitted it openly. What stood before them was merely a refined corpse of the Sun-Moon God, not the true deity. Inyang Sage Monarch's words sent chills down everyone's spine. Just looking at this corpse was enough to imagine how terrifyingly powerful the Sun-Moon God must have been in his lifetime. A single corpse was already sweeping through countless saint sovereigns. When he had been alive, he must truly have been invincible. At least to those present, he would have been unmatched. The Light Lord Sage Monarch sneered as well. If he were a true infinite Tao powerhouse right now, my formation would indeed be useless. But he is dead. This Sun-Moon God can no longer condense primordial edicts. Everything he is using now is merely remnant primordial edicts left from when he was alive. Once those remnants are completely exhausted, that will be the moment he finally dies. His words carried logic. Without rule power supporting it, the corpse of the Sun-Moon God would surely have rotted long ago. How could it have remained intact for so many years? Su Zimo's eyes lit up. He was right. Killing the Sun-Moon God didn't necessarily require truly killing him. As long as his stored primordial edicts were completely drained, he would naturally perish. Fine, I agree, Su Zimo said. Hearing this, the Light Lord Sage Monarch smiled. He actually had to thank the Sun-Moon God. Otherwise, he might not have been able to pull Su Zimo into his side. Now, everyone's fortunes were tied together. Prosperity or destruction would be shared by all. Bring forth the ancestors' formation, the Light Lord Sage Monarch commanded softly. He raised both hands into the void. All the saint sovereigns of the Radiant Court knelt down. At that moment, power from every person gathered together. In the heavens, a multicolored sun began to form. It was created from the combined power of everyone present. This sun illuminated all things, casting its radiance onto a certain region of land beside them. That land began glowing with soaring divine light, as though something world-shaking was about to emerge. Ancestor, stop them at once, Inyang Sage Monarch shouted. The corpse of the Sun-Moon God stiffly turned its head. A massive palm descended toward that region of land. With a thunderous crash, everything in the area was annihilated. But when the giant hand withdrew, a formation plate floated up, completely untouched. Seize the formation plate, Inyang Sage Monarch roared. Two saint sovereigns from their side instantly shot upward, attempting to grab it. Yet the Radiant Court did not obstruct them at all. On the contrary, they watched with a look of pity. Inyang Sage Monarch suddenly realized something and cried out, "Be careful!" But it was already too late. The moment the two saint sovereigns' hands touched the formation plate, it devoured them instantly, leaving not even bones behind. They vanished without a trace. This formation plate left by our ancestor, how could trash like you ever dream of taking it? A saint sovereign from the Radiant Court snorted. The Light Lord Sage Monarch took the formation plate and activated it in an instant. The plate dissolved into a mysterious power that merged into the void. That power surged outward. No one could evade it. They were all enveloped within. Everyone present was a top-tier cultivator, and they could feel the changes around them clearly. Under the influence of this mysterious force, many sensed subtle changes occurring within themselves, yet they couldn't discern exactly what those changes were. Puzzled them deeply. With a solemn expression, the Light Lord Sage Monarch chanted under his breath, then gave a sharp shout. He pointed toward the sky. Centered around him, a golden source emerged, spreading outward and enveloping an area spanning millions of miles. Within that golden field, countless lines of light intertwined, weaving over and under one another. No matter how these lines twisted or converged, they all ultimately gathered at 4 points: east, west, south, and north. I will be the formation. While I stand, the formation stands. If I fall, the formation falls. I guard the north, the Light Lord Sage Monarch declared. Instantly, the lines on the northern side surged with light, enclosing him completely. Everyone, guard the south for me, he commanded, pointing with his right hand. At the southern area of the formation, a golden circle appeared. The dozen Saint Sovereigns of the Radiant Court soared into the sky and landed within it. As for the east, the Light Lord Sage Monarch looked at Su Zimo. I leave the east to young Master Su. The moment he said this, protests erupted. Sage Monarch, such an important position, how can it be entrusted to an outsider? Exactly. And we need more than 10 Saint Sovereigns to guard a single direction, yet he alone is enough. The formation is vital. We cannot afford carelessness. Hearing these voices, one could easily imagine how much trust the Light Lord Sage Monarch placed in Su Zimo. Su Zimo said nothing. Instead, the Light Lord Sage Monarch countered, if you object, then who among you can guarantee, absolutely guarantee, that you can hold this position? The crowd fell silent. No one dared make such a promise. Then can he guarantee it? Someone muttered. I can, Su Zimo replied calmly. He stepped into the sky and entered the eastern golden circle. To the Light Lord Sage Monarch, there was simply no better candidate. Su Zimo was the only one he could rely on. Then who will guard the west? Someone asked curiously. No one. The Light Lord Sage Monarch smiled. The western portion is the land of destruction, the place where all power is discharged. Naturally, it is reserved for the Sun-Moon God. As soon as he finished speaking, a ring of light surrounded the Sun-Moon God. No matter how the giant moved, he could not escape its boundary. The onlookers were shocked. Everyone, don't move. Watch as I draw upon the rules of the sun. The Light Lord Sage Monarch instructed. He pointed skyward again. One after another, the pre-prepared seals shot into the heavens. At the same time, the sun above, the true sun of the 9 heavens, was mysteriously drawn into alignment with the formation. This power fused perfectly into the formation. This was the real sun, not an artificial one. Its force was enough to burn any living being to ashes. The Sun-Moon God sensed danger and began to strike wildly. Each of his attacks caused the formation to tremble for a long time. But it was too late. The formation had already activated. Endless solar rule power poured down from the heavens. This formation was truly heaven-defying. It could forcibly draw rule power from the actual sun. The Sun-Moon God roared in fury. Meanwhile, Enyang Sage Monarch, upon seeing where the Light Lord Sage Monarch and Su Zimo were positioned, shouted immediately, they are the formation. Kill the 3 of them. Kill even one, and the formation will collapse. As he spoke, his Enyang power surged as he attacked the Light Lord Sage Monarch. But when his attack landed, it struck nothing but empty air, as though they existed in different dimensions. Useless, the Light Lord Sage Monarch said, shaking his head. I am the formation. I cannot be killed. The formation does not perish, therefore I do not die, the Light Lord Sage Monarch replied. Inyang Sage Monarch attacked several more times, only to realize his efforts were pointless. He understood then, unless the formation was destroyed, the Light Lord Sage Monarch could not be killed. He glanced at the dozen Saint Sovereigns and then at Su Zimo's side. He immediately unleashed a slash of Inyang power. With a thunderous boom, the area where the dozen Saint Sovereigns stood exploded instantly. Inyang Sage Monarch's eyes lit up. He understood. This formation borrowed the rules of the sun to refine the Sun-Moon God. And the eyes of the formation required 3 people to guard. The Light Lord Sage Monarch was the main formation eye and could not be attacked. But the places guarded by Su Zimo and the other dozen Saint Sovereigns were auxiliary formation eyes, which could be targeted. Su Zimo focused, looking into the golden circle before him. A miniature sun slowly rose from within. That small sun was the object he had to guard. Inyang Sage Monarch shouted, "Destroy the 2 auxiliary formation eyes, and we can rescue our ancestor." "Yes!" the Saint Sovereigns roared. Su Zimo sensed an invisible link forming between himself and the miniature sun. The 2 seemed fused as one. If he died, the sun would vanish. If he lived, the sun would remain intact. He understood this was the formation's mechanism. It tied the Guardian's life to the miniature sun. And he also felt the formation's power pouring endlessly into his body. This formation was impressive. Not only did it require him to guard it, but it granted him a constant surge of power. At that moment, Su Zimo felt his strength skyrocketing to the point of threatening his physical limits. The power burned with the heat of the sun. It was clearly being forcibly drawn from the true sun in the sky. His entire body burned hot. His mind flooded with battle instinct. Only war could ease the violent surge in his heart. This formation is interesting. If this continues, it might turn its guardians into pure war machines. He murmured this to himself, yet did nothing to resist it. Instead, he embraced it. He knew that what he needed now was war, and overwhelming will to fight. 2 auxiliary formation eyes stood on opposite sides. One was guarded by more than a dozen Saint Sovereigns. The other was guarded by only Su Zimo. Only a fool wouldn't know which target to attack. So countless enemies rushed straight toward Su Zimo. Su Zimo snorted. If one entrusts their body to blades, they kill amidst the mortal dust. With Shadow Tyrant in hand, he stepped into the sky. The blazing sovereign erupted in flame, burning the heavens themselves. A sea of fire flooded the sky, leaving Su Zimo no place to dodge. When 2 meet on a narrow path, the brave wins. Su Zimo had never considered dodging. He slashed. The vast sky split in 2. With a deafening roar, the sea of fire was torn apart. Su Zimo burst through the flames and kicked Blazing Sovereign squarely in the chest. But Blazing Sovereign had prepared for this. A flaming monster burst from behind him, biting down at Su Zimo. "Get lost," Su Zimo growled. Shadow Tyrant jammed into the monster's jaws, keeping it from closing. Su Zimo punched once, and the fiery beast exploded. "3 Realms Sword!" A stern voice echoed from the sky. Su Zimo hadn't even raised his head when a sword intent tore through the air, fracturing thousands of miles of space. Crashed into his chest like a sea of hellfire. A deep sword wound formed across him. On the other side, Revelation Sovereign appeared, forming seals rapidly. A circular formation unfolded before him. From it surged a torrent of force, blasting into Su Zimo. Still dissatisfied, the Mad Thunder Saint Sovereign of the Sun-Moon Temple also struck. Holding his thunder hammer high, he pointed at the heavens. Lightning surged wildly above. "Myriad thunders, heavenly descent," he roared. Every bolt of lightning found a single point of release, pouring downward in a catastrophic flood of thunder, crashing into Su Zimo. Explosions erupted endlessly around him. Space refused to mend. The combined absolute attacks of several Saint Sovereigns left spectators murmuring below. "He's dead for sure. Even a Saint Sovereign would be gravely wounded after that. Shame. The young man was quite powerful. Look! The sky! Something's wrong." Someone pointed upward, shouting. At the core of the explosion, wisps of black demonic energy seeped out. More and more appeared, soon blanketing the entire heavens above. And the closer one was to Su Zimo. The denser the demonic energy grew, almost tangible, as if a demon king were about to be born. At last, as the explosion's aftermath settled, Su Zimo's figure became clear. It seems you attacked the wrong target. Had you gone after the dozen Saint Sovereigns of the Radiant Court, you might have broken a formation eye. But attacking me today, I alone am enough to bury all of you. Su Zimo slowly lifted his head. Demonic energy erupted from his eyes. Purple markings spread across his body. He activated the hell-suppressing demon physique. It felt as though a limit within him had shattered. The power flowing in from the formation had already reached the peak of what he could endure. Yet now even more surged into him endlessly. And his body, as though a bottomless abyss, absorbed everything. With a wave of his hand, he uprooted the tree of life from the god world and planted it in the air before him. Now he possessed limitless battle power and limitless healing. After merging with the wood gifted by the wood god Jumong, the tree of life had evolved to an even higher level. This life force filled the world, unmatched. Its branches covered the sky, connecting to the heavens themselves. Its roots reached deep, anchoring heaven and earth. Demonic energy billowed from Su Zimo as he dashed toward the Saint Sovereigns. He appeared before Blazing Sovereign, shattered his fire shield with a punch, and struck him in the face. Situ screamed, his face nearly collapsing under the force. Su Zimo pivoted in midair and appeared before the Three Realms Saint Sovereign. A contest of blade and sword? My Shadow Tyrant has never lost such a fight. He swung downward. Shadow Tyrant collided head-on with the three divine swords. On Shadow Tyrant, demonic energy transformed into countless hideous faces, each one roaring relentlessly. The heaven, earth, human three swords, by contrast, radiated profound Tao aura. These three swords were naturally bred treasures, born of heaven and earth and extremely rare. Though each sword by itself was not extraordinarily powerful, when all three were used together, they possessed the ability to shake the heavens and earth. The few figures remained locked in a dead stalemate. Demonic energy surged more and more violently around Su Zimo. Following his usual approach, he unleashed the 10 primordial god scriptures in full. A colossal giant shook the heavens. The Heaven-Earth Dharma Codex expanded. The God-Devil creation atlas manifested, and the three gates pierced the firmament. Explosions thundered continuously. The more Su Zimo fought, the fiercer he became. The more he clashed, the stronger he grew. The aura of the Shadow Tyrant swelled until it finally detonated with a deafening boom. The three heaven-earth mortal sovereigns were blasted away. Su Zimo shifted his stance and instantly located the Revelation Sovereign. Yet this Revelation Sovereign was exceptionally formidable. His figure flickered unpredictably, shuttling through the void without pause. The title Revelation referred to the primordial dawn when heaven and earth first awakened, and indeed, his true form was a space-time flower, a plant born at the genesis of the world. His affinity with the heavens and earth was immeasurably high, and with his mastery over the Tao of space-time, no one could match his speed or concealment. He hid continuously in the void, changing position so quickly that Su Zimo could not strike him. From the sigils before him, torrents of energy burst forth, crashing towards Su Zimo. Su Zimo let out a cold snort. The infinite samsara demon eye opened, and the overwhelming power of reincarnation reversed all forces and shackled the void itself. Within those eyes, demonic energy churned. Under their gaze, nothing could remain hidden. The void where Revelation Sovereign concealed himself began to twist like a distorted spiderweb. He was trapped at the very center, his space shrinking until he could no longer maneuver. At last he was bound completely, unable to move. "Run, little ant," Su Zimo taunted. His blade pierced through the Revelation Sovereign's abdomen, ripping out his internal organs. Su Zimo then turned to the Mad Thunder Saint Sovereign. "This guy is too vicious," someone below muttered. "Vicious?" With the entire Sun, Moon temples Saint Sovereigns attacking him, and still they can't take him down. Don't rush. Keep watching. Something might change later. The mad thunder Saint Sovereign roared madly. His body turned into pure lightning as he bellowed, countless bolts erupting across the sky and lashing violently toward Su Zimo. Everything was lightning primal Tao, for he had once used lightning itself as his divine soul when he cultivated. The lightning reflected his spirit, and purple light flashed through the heavens. Seeing this, Su Zimo narrowed his eyes. Eighth form, Sun Demon. The one who blocks my kin shall perish. The Sun Demon represented blazing, scorching existence, like the sun itself, illuminating all things. Yet to be a demon meant to devour all things. Behind Su Zimo, demonic energy billowed upward, and a golden demonic head rose from the void. Unlike the black demonic energy, this head blazed with burning solar heat. The demon opened its enormous mouth, as though to swallow all lightning. Bolts faded one after another, and the mad thunder Saint Sovereign, unable to hide any longer, was forced to reveal himself. If he did not, the Sun Demon would devour him as well. The moment he appeared, Su Zimo stepped through space-time, seized both his arms, and tore them apart. The mad thunder Saint Sovereign was a hardened warrior. He endured the agony without a scream, retreating quickly after losing both arms. Though the clash seemed lengthy, only a few minutes had passed. Within those few minutes, these Saint Sovereigns had already been gravely wounded. Su Zimo stood in the sky, demonic might blanketing the ages. No one dared meet his gaze. A demon of this magnitude appearing in this era. No wonder the heavenly court is desperate to kill you. The Yin-Yang sage monarch's voice rang out beside him. Su Zimo slowly turned his head. You want to try as well? I intend to, the Yin-Yang sage monarch replied sharply. He stepped forward and struck across the void with a single palm. Yin and Yang forces surged, spiraling like the twin fish of the Taiji. Within the formation, the Sun-Moon God's primordial edict power was being drained rapidly. The Yin-Yang sage monarch had no intention of dragging this out. His palm descended, carrying world-shaking force. Su Zimo shouted and met him with a palm strike of his own. The collision exploded violently, sending Su Zimo flying backward. It was unsurprising, he had underestimated his opponent. The Yin-Yang sage monarch was unlike the other Saint Sovereigns. Leaving aside the sage monarch, he was the most ancient and experienced powerhouse within the Sun-Moon Temple. Apart from the Sun-Moon God himself, no one could threaten him. He had once been considered the person most likely to step into the infinite Tao realm. Though that hope had long since faded, his foundation remained the strongest. Just one exchange allowed Su Zimo to feel tremendous pressure. Again, Su Zimo shouted. It had been a long time since he had fought so freely, so fiercely. Enlightenment was not only gained by meditation in quiet places. One could seek out all the heroes under heaven and comprehend the Tao through battle, observing others' Taos to illuminate one's own. His demonic energy roared as he clashed with the Yin-Yang sage monarch. At first, Su Zimo was completely outmatched, beaten bloodied with every exchange. But slowly, the Yin-Yang sage monarch noticed Su Zimo adapting to his rhythm and growing stronger by the moment. More importantly, Su Zimo could not be killed. The towering tree of life behind him healed him incessantly with limitless life force. His power filled his body without cease. The Yin-Yang sage monarch grew increasingly anxious. With a frown, he abandoned attacking Su Zimo and turned his palm toward the tree of life. But he miscalculated. The previous tree of life could have been destroyed, but not the one enhanced by Jumong. At minimum, only an infinite Tao cultivator could destroy it now. His Yin-Yang strikes caused the tree to tremble slightly but did nothing more. He gave a cold snort, exchanged another palm strike with the pursuing Su Zimo, then pulled back to create distance. Today, I shall end you, demon, with my grand Yin-Yang scripture, the Yin-Yang sage monarch declared. When he heard the name grand Yin-Yang scripture, the Light Lord sage monarch quickly reminded him, be careful of his grand Yin-Yang scripture. It stands on equal ground with our grand radiant scripture. One represents the past, The other represents the future. One yin, one yang, past and future. When cultivated to its peak, it can even alter a person's yin-yang destiny. Speaking of past and future, it does remind me of something, Su Zimo replied calmly. The yin-yang sage monarch snorted coldly. Light Lord, you'd better take care of yourself. When this formation is destroyed, our ancestor, the Sun-Moon God, will erase everything. The Light Lord Sage Monarch said nothing more. He simply reminded Su Zimo to stay cautious. Su Zimo thought of one of his 10 primordial God scriptures. The primeval Buddha God scripture, the present Tathagata Sutra, the past Maitreya Sutra, and the future Birthless Sutra. These arts dealt not only with the past and the future, but also with the present. Across from him, the yin-yang sage monarch had already begun to move. Yin and yang surged around him in 2 opposing streams, erupting with force. Under the pressure of these 2 currents, the world split into 2 halves. Then the yin and yang began spiraling together, rotating continuously. The sphere of yin-yang energy wasn't large, no bigger than his palm, but this small cluster was the core of the entire world. As it spun, the entire realm began to rotate with it. Distorted space enveloped Su Zimo, engulfing even his warped silhouette and swallowing him whole. Look at your past. When I kill your past, your present self will also die, the yin-yang sage monarch said coldly. This was the terror of the grand yin-yang scripture. If one couldn't kill someone in the present, one could travel to their past, find their weakest moment, and erase it. If the past died, the present could not exist. Su Zimo felt his body traveling through time. This wasn't crossing from one world to another, it was moving from the present to the future, and to the distant past. He could tell this grand yin-yang scripture was different from his 3 sutras. And since he had always been curious about what his own past looked like, he didn't resist. He followed the pull of time. After a long period, his movement slowly came to a halt. The power surrounding him faded, and his vision cleared. But he discovered he could not move his body at all. He could only observe the world in front of him. The yin-yang sage monarch's figure appeared beside him. Don't struggle. You can't do anything. You'll just watch while I kill the past you. After that, you'll be erased from this world. This was the past world he had arrived in. It was a vast plain. Everything looked ancient, barren rivers, broken remains, yellow sand. From far away came thunderous roars. Looking into the distance, he saw a massive battlefield. The scale stunned even him. Both sides had armies of 1,000,000,000,000. 1,000,000,000,000 soldiers spread across the endless plains. Even 1,000,000,000,000 ants would look imposing from the heavens, let alone this. Roars, screams, explosions. The sounds of war filled the world. Even the yin-yang sage monarch was shaken. He had never in his life witnessed a battle of such magnitude. Even the great war between the Radiant Court and the Sun-Moon Temple was nothing compared to this, not even a fraction. What is this place? The yin-yang sage monarch asked in shock. You wanted to kill my past. Perhaps this is my past, Su Zimo replied. The yin-yang sage monarch said nothing. The battle before him left no room for thought. Countless saint sovereigns fought in the sky. Truly countless. He looked up and saw saint sovereigns rising into the air in swarms. He had never seen so many saint sovereigns together. Then he noticed something else. The 2 sides battling were the ancient demon race and a very ancient race, the royal primordial race. Most people didn't know of the royal primordials, but those who understood the ancient history of the 9 heavens did. In the long, boundless history of the 9 heavens, first came the age of the ancient gods, when the 9 ancient deities pursued the wild origins of time. That became the primordial era, an age spoken of only in legends, where the primordial land was home to countless ancient spirits and immeasurable strength. The royal primordial race was the sole true god race of that era. They ruled the entire age. But according to all historical records, after the primordial era ended, the royal primordials went extinct. Now, the royal primordials and the ancient demon race were fighting in full force. Both sides had victories and losses, perfectly matched. The yin-yang sage monarch stared without blinking. Legend says the ancient demon race ended the primordial era. It seems the royal primordials were exterminated by the demons, he muttered. At that moment, he saw a man walk out from the ancient demon race's army, clad in a battle robe, spear in hand. 4 protectors accompanied him, all of them infinite Tao realm powerhouses. It showed just how terrifyingly strong the ancient demon race once was. The man in the battle robe sat upon a throne, displeased with the battle before him. He waved a hand. A thunderous boom erupted. In an instant, demonic energy surged. In just a heartbeat, 500 billion royal primordials were wiped out. Corpses blanketed the plains, blood flooding the earth. A protector raised the demon list and shouted, "Where the demon list passes, it is as though the Lord himself arrives. Wherever my Lord's gaze falls, those who do not submit will meet the same fate as today's royal primordial race." As his voice fell, a furious roar erupted from deep within the primordial royal army. "All you demons deserve to die." An elderly royal primordial tore through the sky. Infinite Tao energy surged around him. His aura was so overwhelming that even the void crackled and split apart. He struck with a single palm, a palm containing an entire world, a kingdom within his grasp, bringing crushing pressure. But before the enthroned man even moved, one of the 4 protectors struck first, meeting the attack head-on. Power erupted between them. Explosions shook the heavens. This was not a small-scale clash. It was the detonation of the entire firmament, sweeping across the whole plane. Phoenix stepped back. From the throne, the infernal lord's voice suddenly echoed. The guardian who had been fighting the elder of the royal primordial race immediately withdrew. The infernal lord lifted his head and looked at the old man before him. The elder charged forward in fury, murderous aura soaring skyward as though he intended to overturn the heavens themselves. Power surged throughout his body. Yet when he reached the infernal lord, all that momentum abruptly halted. Because the infernal lord simply extended a hand and seized the old man by the throat. He lifted him effortlessly, looking at him with cold indifference. "10-day progenitor, your era has come to an end. You deserve to die," the elder struggled. "Everyone dies. I've never feared my own death. But death, to me, is merely a path one must walk, not the end of life." The infernal lord gazed toward the distant horizon. "Perhaps my entire life has been an unending cycle between life and death, an immortal loop." As soon as his words fell, he did not hesitate. He thrust the sky-piercing halberd straight into the elder's abdomen. Power surged through the spear, consuming the old man entirely. Once finished, the infernal lord sat calmly back on the throne. The royal primordial race, rulers of countless glorious eras, had finally met the inevitable fate of decline. What awaited them now was destruction. "You wanted to kill my past, didn't you?" Su Zimo said with a smile. "Go on then. He's sitting right there. I'll be watching." At this moment, the Yin-Yang sage monarch was already terrified beyond reason, because the infernal lord's gaze slowly turned and landed upon him. The infernal lord said nothing, but the pressure was so immense that the Yin-Yang sage monarch nearly collapsed on the spot. "Oh, you carry the power of time. A future elder, then." The Yin-Yang sage monarch roared, activating his grand Yin-Yang scripture. Now he no longer wanted to kill anyone, he only wanted to escape this world, because this world was far too terrifying. But with one wave of his hand, the infernal lord instantly sealed the distorted world created by the grand Yin-Yang scripture. The saint sovereign stared in horror. Before this being, his grand Yin-Yang scripture felt as childish as a toddler learning to walk. But to his surprise, as the infernal lord walked forward step by step, he did not even look at him. It was as though an ant like him did not deserve a glance. The infernal lord approached Su Zimo. Their gazes met, as though separated by 100 million years, standing in 2 different eras. "You've come," the infernal lord spoke first. "Just an accident, but a rather interesting meeting," Su Zimo replied with a smile. "I hope you do not repeat the mistakes of the past. Truly find the final answer and bring everything to an end," the infernal lord said softly. He waved his hand again and glanced at the Yin-Yang Sage Monarch. The distorted void around them shifted. I'll take you into the Yin-Yang Sage Monarch's past. You can kill him easily. I hope that when we meet again, you can fulfill the dream passed down through generations of demons. Su Zimo had no strength to resist. The twisting void swallowed him again. When he reappeared, he found himself inside the Radiant Court. No, not the present Radiant Court. This was tens of millions of years ago, before the Great War between the Sun Moon Temple and the Radiant Court had ever taken place. Su Zimo was witnessing the past, the memories of the Yin-Yang Sage Monarch. This was the timeline of his former self. Soon, Su Zimo saw a lively little boy hopping along from the distance. The child carried a Yin-Yang disc on his back, Yin-Yang energy surging naturally around him. When the child approached, he also noticed Su Zimo. "You're the Yin-Yang Sage Monarch?" Su Zimo asked. "My master gave me the title Yin-Yang, but what is a Saint Sovereign?" the boy asked innocently. "Oh right, you haven't become a saint yet." Su Zimo laughed. He grabbed the boy with one hand. In the child's terrified gaze, Su Zimo cast him into the void, where the twisting space instantly shredded the Yin-Yang Sage Monarch's past. Then Su Zimo's body was pulled once more through the void. This time, he returned to his own timeline. Now, Su Zimo looked at the Yin-Yang Sage Monarch before him. With the distortion of the grand Yin-Yang scripture, the Saint Sovereign's body began dissolving from the feet upward. What did you do to me?" The Saint Sovereign screamed in terror. "The same thing you wanted to do to me, erasing your past," Su Zimo said with a smile. Hearing this, the Yin-Yang Sage Monarch was horrified. "You're a demon, a true devil. Weren't you the one who insisted on seeing my past?" Su Zimo said lightly. "What's wrong? Are you scared now?" The Yin-Yang Sage Monarch struggled desperately, but it was useless. Without a past, there can be no present. This was erasing a person's fate from the river of time, something only a true powerhouse could accomplish. Even Su Zimo, relying on the primeval Buddha God scripture, could only glimpse the future or summon a future self. He could not travel freely through time. Only beings like the Infernal Lord could casually traverse past and future. The Yin-Yang Sage Monarch, who had trained in Yin-Yang power since youth and had endured millions of years of cultivation, had achieved his strength only through endless accumulation. But every journey through time had done irreparable damage to him. Watching him die before their eyes was a devastating blow to the Sun Moon Temple. Almost all the Saint Sovereigns went mad and charged at Su Zimo. Su Zimo did not retreat. Demonic energy roared around him, power surging through the sky. As the Saint Sovereigns rushed in, Su Zimo swung Shadow Tyrant, its killing intent sweeping across the battlefield. The battle that followed was pure life and death struggle. Every slash from Su Zimo's blade drew blood. Every punch from the Saint Sovereigns struck his flesh. All the Saint Sovereigns were battered and bleeding. Su Zimo as well, flesh torn, body mangled, and even with the Tree of Life constantly healing him, his injuries remained severe. Yet Su Zimo laughed wildly, intoxicated by the battle. Explosions thundered non-stop. "Come again!" Su Zimo roared. Some Saint Sovereigns began to waver, not because they feared Su Zimo, but because they realized that even if they fought until the Sun Moon God died to the formation, they still would not be able to kill Su Zimo. The battle was meaningless. Yet Su Zimo charged at them like a madman. "Lord, do something!" a Saint Sovereign shouted anxiously. The body of Bright Sun Sovereign, which had been consumed earlier, now reappeared in the sky, but only as a soul. His body was long gone. Seeing his ancestor's death, Bright Sun Sovereign was furious. He shouted toward the heavens, "Heavenly Court, if you do not take action now, we will withdraw." Bright Sun Sovereign's fury was understandable. The Sun Moon Temple had spent tens of millions of years cultivating and nursing their strength. Countless people had contributed to its growth before it finally reached its current scale, strong enough to challenge the Radiant Court. One could imagine how difficult their lightless, oppressive existence had been over all those ages. And now their strongest ancestor had fallen. As for their progenitor, the Sun-Moon God, he was trapped in the formation and could be destroyed at any moment. How could Bright Sun's sovereign not be enraged? The heavenly court, who had originally allied with them, was nowhere to be seen. That alone pushed Bright Sun's sovereign past his limit. Fine, if it came to it, he would withdraw and continue biding their time. Perhaps sensing the furious outcry of the Sun-Moon Temple, the once still sky suddenly erupted with roaring thunder and a sea-like surge of spirit energy. Rolling thunder boomed one strike after another. Su Zimo looked up to see an enormous hand descending toward him. This giant hand was not from a pseudo-infinite Tao cultivator like the Sun-Moon God. The primordial edicts flowing across its surface and the crushing aura it released made it clear. The owner of this hand was a true infinite Tao powerhouse. Tore through the void, blocking out even the sun. At that moment, it felt as though the giant hand had become the focal point of the entire world, drawing every gaze toward it. As the hand reached for Su Zimo, another giant hand emerged from the depths of the radiant court. Its aura was even stronger, and it too belonged to an infinite Tao cultivator. Two infinite Tao-level beings in a single day, an event unseen for 1,000 years. Existence at this level rarely appeared, and the crowd could only marvel in awe. The two hands collided. Under the force of their clash, everyone felt insignificant, as weak as ants being toyed with. The explosive shockwave blew everyone back, Su Zimo included. At that moment, a voice spoke from deep within the radiant court. "Immortal Lord, why so impatient? This isn't our war." Hearing the voice, the people of the radiant court erupted with excitement. "It's the progenitor. Our progenitor has emerged. That means we've won." Of course, once the progenitor appears, he's unmatched in this age. Don't celebrate yet, the heavenly court is involved. Remember? That hand just now means they brought an infinite Tao cultivator too. It was the Immortal Lord, the head of the small faction called Immortal Gate within the heavenly court. They say he is the holy progenitor's disciple. Someone murmured. The heavenly court was far too mysterious. People only knew it resided somewhere in the Calamity Immortal Heaven, though its exact location was unknown. No one truly understood them. They ignored the surrounding chatter. The two probing attacks just now represented two infinite Tao beings. Primordial Flame, the progenitor of the Radiant Court, and the Immortal Lord of the Heavenly Court. Neither revealed their true body. After testing each other, they both fell silent. Then the Immortal Lord's voice echoed. It was ethereal, almost genderless. "Primordial Flame, let this end here. Lose and you want to walk away?" Primordial Flame's voice responded coldly. They still did not reveal themselves, merely speaking. Yet everyone knew their fate rested on these two voices alone. Such was the world of the strong. "We did not lose. The Sun-Moon Temple is simply worthless," the Immortal Lord replied, calm, emotionless. Even with Inyang Sage Monarch and the Sun-Moon God, they still failed. "So what?" Primordial Flame asked. "When you lose, you pay the price. You want to start a war with our heavenly court?" "I don't," Primordial Flame said. "But your heavenly court has already crossed the line." With a sweep of his hand, he grabbed at a patch of empty space. The void tore open, revealing a hidden ship within, a vessel carrying several Saint Sovereigns. This divine aura made it clear. This was one of the heavenly court's sacred ships. As the giant hand reached for it, several powerful saintly auras burst from the ship. "What do you think you're doing?" the Saint Sovereigns roared. They were heavenly court, sacred and untouchable. "Run! That is a being of true terror!" someone shouted, sensing the overwhelming force in Primordial Flame's hand, an aura that could suppress all. The sacred ship surged with power, ripping through the void in an attempt to escape. But before the hand, it was like a monkey trapped in the Buddha's palm. No matter how it struggled, it could not flee. When the hand closed, it was over. The sacred ship was crushed into red paste. The Saint Sovereigns aboard barely struggled before they were crushed to death. Their souls and life essence were erased completely, not even allowed the chance to reach the netherworld. The Immortal Lord watched this unfold without intervening. He simply observed as the ship and its saint sovereigns were annihilated. He knew this was the price. The heavenly court would sacrifice a small piece to end the conflict. The heavenly court did not want war, and neither did the radiant court. So the act was silently accepted. Then the immortal Lord spoke again. Our business with the radiant court is settled. We drew out the Sun-Moon Temple for you. Now the threat looming over your radiant court can be dealt with at any time. From today on, your rule over the Inferno Crucible Heaven will be unshakable. In a way, you should be thanking me. And, Primordial Flame asked coolly, you think I don't know what's happening with the Sun-Moon Temple? Why else would I leave that formation behind? I only wish to give them a peaceful life. Unfortunately, some fools don't cherish the chance and insisted on walking into the flames. Heavenly Court, didn't we agree to cooperate? What is this supposed to mean? Bright Sun's sovereign shouted, realizing the situation had turned against them. Fool, cooperation is based on equality. Your Yin-Yang Sage Monarch is dead. Your Sun-Moon God is about to disappear. What do you have left to bargain with? The Immortal Lord said coldly. His voice cracked like thunder. The impact made Bright Sun's sovereign spit blood and nearly collapse. You. He pointed toward the sky, unable to form words. His face turned dark with rage. Now he finally understood. From the start, they had been manipulated. The Heavenly Court had taken advantage of the Sun-Moon Temple's thirst for vengeance and used them like disposable pawns. And now, someone of his level meant nothing to them. The realization struck like a final blow. The Immortal Lord continued, since our matter is settled, I assume you won't interfere with what I do next. I'm taking him with me, he said, and his overwhelming pressure instantly locked onto Su Zimo. Indeed, from beginning to end, Su Zimo had always been their primary target. Manipulating the Radiant Court was merely something they handled in passing while exploiting the Sun-Moon Temple. To the Heavenly Court, Su Zimo was the true threat, their greatest concern far beyond any sect or individual. They were willing to abandon matters concerning the Radiant Court if it meant seizing him. Su Zimo frowned. He understood that, with his current strength, he could not confront the Heavenly Court or an infinite Tao powerhouse. But if pushed into a corner, he wouldn't hesitate to unleash the power left behind by the previous Infernal Lord. If he did, whether it was the Immortal Lord or any infinite Tao existence, they could all be buried with a flick of his hand. Yet he knew that every use of that power consumed what he had left. It was his final safeguard, something he would never use unless he faced true life and death danger. Hearing the Immortal Lord's words, Primordial Flame let out a cold laugh. He looked at Su Zimo and said with a smile, Infernal Lord, how about we make a deal? I know exactly what kind of deal you want, Su Zimo replied. And I refuse. He shook his head. He could easily guess Primordial Flame's intentions. He carried the myriad streams on him, something the Radiant Court would desperately want. He also possessed several fires belonging to the Fire God race. Primordial Flame's deal would be nothing more than offering protection in exchange for those treasures. Su Zimo had planned for far too long to let everything go to waste just because the Immortal Lord showed up. He looked toward the sky, where the Immortal Lord remained hidden in the void, suppressing an entire region. Su Zimo said with a smile, I know you're strong, but do you truly think you can take me? Push me too hard and I'll bury you here today. I'll lose some things, sure, but you'll disappear. I only wonder whether that old holy progenitor of yours is watching. The Immortal Lord let out a heavy, furious snort. Su Zimo's words clearly enraged him. Primordial Flame, however, chuckled. Infernal Lord, even with what you said, I'll still protect you. The myriad streams of our Fire God race cannot be allowed to fall into the Heavenly Court's hands. I'd rather deal with you than with them. Besides, the fight between you two would make quite the spectacle. Hearing Primordial Flame's gloating tone, both Su Zimo and the Immortal Lord snorted at the same time. So, Immortal Lord, Primordial Flame asked, what's your choice? Fight or crawl away? Because you're here today, Primordial Flame, I'll give you some face, the Immortal Lord replied. His gaze returned to Su Zimo. Infernal Lord, your ending will always be death. No matter how you struggle, it won't change anything. Death doesn't concern me, Su Zimo said with a smile. Someone just said something earlier that I liked. Death is just one stop in my life, not the end. Life and death cycle without ceasing. Death only makes others shine brighter. The immortal Lord gave another cold snort, and his presence slowly faded. The crushing pressure that had been weighing on everyone likewise dissipated. While he hadn't targeted anyone else directly, his aura alone had kept the crowd in a state of suffocating oppression. Su Zimo looked up at the sky and finally let out his own cold snort. Primordial Flame turned his gaze toward the Sun-Moon God, trapped within the formation, and sighed softly. You are already dead. You should find peace. He waved his right hand, releasing wave after wave of primordial edict power. It wrapped around the Sun-Moon God, as if attempting to strip away the monstrous resentment clinging to him. The Sun-Moon God roared wildly. Though he no longer possessed consciousness, the hatred between him and Primordial Flame, hatred spanning tens of millions of years, still burned. He broke free from the binding primordial edicts and charged at Primordial Flame with murderous rage. Primordial Flame sighed. If you seek battle, then let it be outside the heavens. Let this end your life. You began with me, and you'll end with me. He flicked his right hand, and the distorted void swallowed both of them, dragging them away. With their departure, the Light Lord Sage Monarch was freed from the formation. He looked to the shaken crowd and smiled. Everyone, I apologize for the fright you suffered today. I hope you won't spread today's events. They have nothing to do with any of you. Sage Monarch, when can we leave? Someone asked. Their safety was still their biggest concern. You may leave at any time, the Sage Monarch replied. However, the Radiant Court has prepared a grand feast to make up for the distress caused today. You may choose to stay or go. We won't stop you. Some people wish to leave immediately, but others recognize this as a rare chance to build a relationship with the Radiant Court. Once the crowd was calmed, the Light Lord Sage Monarch approached Su Zimo. Young Master Su, our progenitor will return shortly. He asked me to escort you into the Radiant Court for rest. Relax. I'm not going anywhere, Su Zimo said. Not before I squeeze a hefty price out of your Radiant Court. The Sage Monarch laughed awkwardly. He had guessed parts of Su Zimo's identity and knew a little, but after today, he realized he knew only the tip of the iceberg. Seeing how even Primordial Flame treated Su Zimo, he dared not comment further. Only Primordial Flame himself could discuss these matters. Su Zimo was invited into the Radiant Court, where he was treated like an honored ancestor. Earlier, the Sun-Moon God had smashed the hall with a single strike, but the Radiant Court was a treasure capable of self-repair. As long as it wasn't completely annihilated, it could regenerate. Su Zimo sat in a courtyard within the hall. Two maids of exceptional beauty stood guard at the entrance, serving him. Before long, the void beside the nearby pavilion silently split open, and Primordial Flame stepped out. He took a seat. He appeared as a middle-aged man in a long, flowing black robe. His red hair draped behind him, and his face was marked with ancient black lines, mysterious patterns filled with an unfathomable aura. Aside from these markings, he had returned to a natural, unassuming state. He looked like an ordinary man, ordinary yet enigmatic, with strange overlapping auras surrounding him. Seeing you isn't easy, Su Zimo said with a smile. Well, here I am, Primordial Flame replied with a smile of his own. It's not that I didn't want to show myself. The Immortal Lord was watching me. We were secretly competing. Neither of us wanted to step out first. But in the end, I won. Seeing him smile, Su Zimo said, Your victory came from me risking my life to kill the Enyang Sage Monarch. Primordial Flame smiled. He replied, Infernal Lord, in a way we should be on the same side. The Heavenly Court is our common enemy. That may be true, but even brothers settle accounts clearly, don't they? Su Zimo answered. If you ask me, back in your era, if you had just destroyed the Heavenly Court, none of this trouble would exist today. Primordial Flame responded with regret. But despite having the strength back then, you still chose to let them live. The previous infernal lord, Su Zimo muttered. In his eyes, the only real enemy was the damned heavens. As for the heavenly court, they were just rats scurrying under his feet. Would you care about a rat? No, but a rat can still spoil a whole pot of soup, can't it? Primordial Flame said with a laugh. Name your price. Su Zimo knew he meant the myriad streams. You know very well that to your fire god race, this thing is priceless, Su Zimo said. But to you, it's worthless, isn't it? Primordial Flame countered. Neither was willing to back down. But Su Zimo wasn't in a hurry. Instead, he smiled. Primordial Flame, your fire god race should still have enlightenment stones, right? No problem. I can give you one, Primordial Flame answered immediately. Don't rush. I'm not done, Su Zimo said. I want 10 drops of your true god blood. You're really asking the impossible. 3 drops at most. No more, Primordial Flame said bluntly. 10 drops of true god blood was equivalent to 10 million years of his cultivation. He had to train for 1,000,000 years to condense just 1 drop. True god blood was not like ordinary true blood. Its significance would become clear later. 5 drops. We'll each take a step back, Su Zimo said with a smile. I'm afraid that 5 drops was your goal from the beginning, Primordial Flame snorted. Same to you, Su Zimo waved. Fine, I agree, Primordial Flame said. There's more, Su Zimo added. Don't push it. Primordial Flame stood up, seemingly angry. Come on, don't act. If you were really someone who loses his temper that easily, I'd feel comfortable extorting you, Su Zimo said. He never believed Primordial Flame would get angry. The man was far too calculating and was only pretending to avoid further demands. I've already offered enough, Primordial Flame said as he sat back down and calmed himself. But it's still not enough, Su Zimo shook his head. If you don't want to trade, I'll leave. What else do you want? Primordial Flame asked helplessly. Above this inferno crucible heaven lies the absolute god heaven, right? Su Zimo asked as he gazed upward. The absolute god heaven was one of the 9 heavens, ruled by the 10 god clans. And concerning those families, Su Zimo had significant ties. The 10 primordial god scriptures he practiced originally belonged to them. It was said that besides the 10 god clans, almost no one else knew these divine arts, kept tightly guarded by their bloodlines. Su Zimo, however, had obtained them back in the primordial heartlands from the ruins of the ancient heavenly court, supposedly left behind by the holy progenitor. Along with the divine arts, he had acquired a token from the ancient celestial court. But since coming to the 9 heavens, he had never heard anything about the ancient celestial court, so he still had no use for the token. That's right. Above us is the absolute god heaven, Primordial Flame replied with a smile. One of the 10 god clans, the Nangua god clan, owes your race a favor, right? Su Zimo suddenly asked. I heard that long ago, your ancestors saved their ancestor's life. How do you know that? Primordial Flame asked, his reaction confirming it was true. Su Zimo had learned it by chance, during a conversation with the water god, Gongtu. Gongtu came from the ancient era of the Elder Gods, the primordial founder of the fire god race, far older than Primordial Flame. He had mentioned a few old stories, and Su Zimo had picked up bits from them. What are you planning? Primordial Flame asked with a frown. Give me that favor, Su Zimo said with a smile. So you're heading to the absolute god heaven, Primordial Flame replied. With your strength, that favor from the Nangua god clan is probably useless to me anyway. It'll be useful to me, Su Zimo said. Fine, the favor is yours, Primordial Flame agreed. Compared to true god blood, a simple favor didn't hurt him at all. I hear you're collecting the inheritances of the ancient gods, he added. So you've been investigating me, Su Zimo said. Infernal Lord reappears, so of course I'm curious, Primordial Flame replied. You're planning to enter the primordial demon cave, aren't you? That has nothing to do with you, Suzimo said. Doesn't it? Because I happen to have an ancient god's inheritance, Primordial Flame said with a smile. He was trying to reverse the leverage. Suzimo's gaze sharpened. He looked at Primordial Flame. Primordial Flame continued, I originally planned to trade this inheritance with you. Without one of them, you won't be able to enter the Primordial Demon Cave. Which inheritance do you have? Suzimo asked. Metal God Rushu, Primordial Flame said. He wasn't a fire god race god, but I stumbled upon his inheritance in my youth. Never thought it would become valuable today. So, what do you want? Suzimo asked. You know me. Other than the myriad streams, I'm not interested in anything else, Primordial Flame said. Let's exchange it for your myriad streams. No. Keep your inheritance. Once I've collected all the others, I'll simply take it from you myself, Suzimo said, rising to his feet. In that case, there's nothing left to discuss. They say the Infernal Lord cannot be threatened, Primordial Flame said with a laugh. Enlightenment Stone, 5 drops of true god blood, the Nangua God Clan favor, plus the inheritance of Metal God Rushu. For items total, in exchange for your myriad streams and the ancestral flame you obtained in the ancestral lands. Suzimo thought for a moment, then nodded. He knew this was Primordial Flame's bottom line, and it was also exactly what he had planned to obtain. Suzimo trusted Primordial Flame enough to hand over the items directly. They had originally been prepared by the ancient water god for the fire god race anyway, and he had no use for them. Primordial Flame soon handed over the 4 items to Suzimo. The Enlightenment Stone was the most useful to Suzimo at this stage because it would help him break through to the 4th realm of the Saint Sovereign Boundary, the Creation God. From Supreme Giant to Chaos Primordial to Eternal Overlord, and now to Creation God. For Suzimo, once he stepped into the Creation God stage, the next step would be the Sage Monarch realm. Under normal circumstances, without any external aid, he would still need several more years. No matter how quickly he comprehended the Tao, reaching the Creation God stage would still take time. But with the Enlightenment Stone, Suzimo could directly leap from the Eternal Overlord stage to the Creation God stage. Unlike the indestructible power of the Eternal Overlord stage, the power of creation was endless and ever-renewing. Some said creation was the force that shaped the natural world, its good and its evil. In a sense, creation could give birth to all things. But creation gods were far from reaching that level. They could only create lifeless objects. Suzimo sat cross-legged in a quiet place. Before him floated the Enlightenment Stone. Like a piece of amber, it had a translucent exterior, and within it were fingertip-sized characters. These characters weren't written by anyone. They formed naturally within heaven and earth. This was an Enlightenment Stone, also known as a Saint Sovereign Stone. When a powerhouse of the enlightened spirit race died, they would compress a lifetime of cultivation and enlightenment into a single point, which the world would then refine into this kind of spirit stone. Each stone contained the essence of a life. Suzimo could use this stone to deepen his understanding and ascend to Creation God. He sat cross-legged, gathering spirit energy inside his body. Every surge of spirit energy caused a qualitative transformation. He knew that when the energy accumulated to a certain threshold, it would open the 11th meridian gate, allowing him to step into the infinite Tao realm. Of course, that stage was long and difficult. Suzimo wasn't in a hurry. One bite at a time, that's how one eats a meal. For now, he only needed to reach the Creation God stage. Since it hadn't been long since his breakthrough to the Eternal Overlord stage, he wasn't eager to rush into comprehension. He first wanted to adjust his state to perfection. It took him 3 full days to recover to his peak condition. Finally, he waved his hand. The Enlightenment Stone floated gently before him. It began to rotate, and its outer crystal layer flaked off, releasing the pressure of a Saint Sovereign. The naturally formed characters inside drifted outward. Their meaning didn't matter. What mattered was the aura they carried. Suzimo felt his mind sink into a trance, entering a special state. While he cultivated, somewhere deep in the void of the 9 heavens, a cluster of white mist floated silently. The mist condensed into a human face. Beside it stood Miss Jing, Moonpluck Fairy, and Wu Zhaodi. Except for Miss Jing, the other two had vacant, lifeless expressions. They were clearly being controlled. "We've stalled for too long," the pale face said calmly. "The fault is mine," Miss Jing replied. "Go. His next destination is the absolute God heaven." The voice within the mist said, "Our plans have failed step by step, and he grows stronger with every move. Soon, our situation will become dire. What if we work with the heavenly court?" Miss Jing asked tentatively. At those words, the mist stirred violently. Different paths cannot walk together. The heavenly court is hateful, but compared to him, he is the one who deserves to die, the mist rebuked. "We will do everything we can to stop him," Miss Jing said quickly. "This time, we will target the 10 God clans." "Go and don't disappoint me again," the voice ordered. "I can give you everything, and I can take everything from you." Miss Jing trembled, then hurriedly led Moonpluck Fairy and Wu Zhaodi away. Time lost meaning during cultivation. Su Zimo had spent an entire year attempting to break into the creation god stage. Finally, one morning, a continuous surge of creation energy erupted from his secluded chamber. Even the sky churned under the roaring spirit force. Winds raged, clouds twisted. Above him, the creation energy condensed into a swirling vortex. "He's breaking through," primordial flame murmured from the radiant court, but his body was nowhere in sight. His voice echoed from an unseen place. Unless something earth-shaking occurred, he wouldn't show himself. He was always in seclusion, studying the Tao of eternity, trying to open the 12th meridian gate and break past all shackles toward the far shore of cultivation. Nothing but true immortality interested an infinite Tao powerhouse. "This young Master Su is extraordinary," the Light Lord Sage Monarch murmured. The Night Sovereign nodded. "Good thing our radiant court never clashed with him." "Don't worry," Light Lord Sage Monarch said. "The Ancestor left us instructions. We've already met him before, back in the God-fiend Abyss Heaven." He smiled. "Still, we've been clashing with the heavenly court again and again. We need to tread carefully." The Night Sovereign chuckled. "Busy times ahead. The sunflower has ripened, truly ripened." His tone held deep emotion. They had nurtured it for millions of years. They had once thought it would fail, yet it turned out the only thing missing was irrigation from the myriad streams. With the ancestral flame restored, the next step would be to fully repair the fire god race. At this moment, Su Zimo was wrapped entirely in creation energy. His eyes snapped open, and a powerful aura erupted from within him. Spirit energy surged like a sea, roaring through his body. The primal Daos he cultivated had been refined again and again, first with eternal overlord power, now with creation god power. His strength grew rapidly, though he was still far from the 11th meridian gate, Lightbringer. He couldn't even sense where the gate lay. He extended his right hand. A cat-shaped form began taking shape in his palm. In an instant, the creation energy condensed into a real cat, creating life that was the domain of the heavens themselves. But the life he created with creation energy could not last long. The cat meowed a few times, then died. His body dissolved into the void. "Interesting," Su Zimo whispered. Compared to what he had done back on the God world, it was nothing but still fascinating. No wonder people said that when one opened all 12 meridian gates and transcended heaven and earth, one could become a true god. It wasn't an empty claim. Su Zimo withdrew his aura and stepped out from his place of seclusion.